I am love. I am peace. I am free. I have abundance. I have everything within me. For I was, for I am, for I will always be. We are love. We are peace. We are free. We have abundance. We have everything within us. For we are, for we will always be. For Mother Earth is love. For Mother Earth has peace. For Mother Earth is free. For Mother Earth has abundance. For Mother Earth has everything within her. For she was, for she is, for she will always be. And so it is spoken, so it has been written, and it is done.
You have entered into a dimension of truth, where time does not exist and illusions are shattered. The journey of truth is intense. The journey of truth will set you free. Consider this a warning as you enter the dimension of truth uncompromised.
All right, family. Welcome to the Truth Uncompromised show. I am your host, Rhonda, and tonight is February 20th. We have a great show planned for you tonight. We are doing the continuation on our series, The Real Pilgrims, The True Story of Immigrants Coming to America, Part 16. So we're going to try this YouTube simultaneously broadcast thing again. Assisted and switched software and tested stuff out. So hopefully we can get it working tonight. So shout out to the YouTube chat room. Shout out to Brother Scotty Saturn, was on here early. I really, truly appreciate it. And K Keith, and just forgive me if I'm pronouncing it wrong. I'm just going to say CDB, your initials. So shout out to you all in the chat room on YouTube. Hopefully you can hear me. And shout out to my Blog Talk family that is on the phone. So I am going to bring on my co-host. I see Brother Sean and Sis. So I'm going to bring on Brother Sean, and then I'm going to bring on Sis Sandra. So here we go. Peace and love, brother. Uh-oh, here we go. Peace and love, brother. Can you hear me? Okay, let's try this again. All right, let's try this again. And I'm probably now going to get an echo. Peace and love, brother. Can you hear me? I literally have your line open. Let me try it again. All right, peace and love, brother. Can you hear me? Oh, man. All right. All right. The sound just totally went out. This is some bullshit. Every week is something. Okay, peace and love. Testing, testing. Can you hear me, Brother Sean? All right. Hold on a second. There's some bullshit. Uh... All right. Okay, hold on, bear with me. Okay, hold on. Okay, it's Blog Talk. Thanks, Brother Sean. Ain't this a bitch?
Sis, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You can't hear me? Yep. Okay. I can't hear you. All right, hold on.
But I can't hear you.
Okay. Where am I at? All right, can you hear
me, Brother Sean?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, hold on. YouTube world, can y'all hear me? Hold on. Okay, I'm not sure if YouTube can hear me. All right, Brother Sean, but you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. All right. So let me bring on Sis, and then I'm gonna hit up YouTube to see if they can hear. Every week is something. You know what? Whatever. But let me bring on Sis. Hold on.
Scotty say he can hear both.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Scotty. Peace and love, Sis. How are you?
Peace and love to you too, Sister Rhonda and Brother Sean. I was like, okay.
Here we go again. I mean, I never know which device gonna work, what's not gonna work. So I got like three other backups. So far everything is working. How are you, sis?
I can't complain. Thank you. And yourself?
I'm good. So okay. They're getting echo. Yeah. So I'm gonna close down, mute another line. Hopefully y'all can still hear me. Okay. Can you hear me, Brother Sean?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, sis, you can hear me. All right, YouTube, I just muted another line, so hit me up if you can hear me. If not, we ain't gonna be able to do YouTube live. For whatever reason, once I go live, it changes up the way it works. So somebody confirm for me on YouTube that they can hear you. Okay, cool bean. Okay, so since you have any, go ahead on with the fuckery. I'm about to switch to my headset.
Well, yeah, there's quite a bit of it. I mean, it's the political scenes that are happening. It's kind of, it's pardons, it's visits from the president in our fair state yesterday. And I want to talk about that one. That was interesting because I don't understand how the obvious solution to a problem is what he's coming up with, and our legislators in California never did. And he was here to talk about water. Now, everybody don't like this man, but he came up with the solution for the water because Northern California has most of the water, have the dams and all that kind of stuff. And Southern California can't get it because a little fish, and I think we talked about this some years back, called the smelt. And they won't open the aqueduct for that water to flow through because of this little old fish. They'd rather kill every human below it and all the crops and all the land, but they're going to save that little smelt. And so he said that ain't going to happen no more. They ain't going to dump that water in the ocean anymore. And then let the rest of the people, have no water. Now, people hate him for the fact that he talks plain speaking, and not, that law stuff. So, and then he has these people getting out of jail, and I was listening to one of those guys, and he was treated like interpretation of what the law says and not what the law says. And so, that's the one that was, what is his name? I forget. He was in there, had a 14-year term, and he was supposed to get out for 8 years.
In Illinois. I can see his face just, I see his face is clear as day. He's is he Polish? I think he Polish. But go ahead, sis. I can't think of Blood's name.
So, I mean, I said to myself, when they get him in court, they really treat him just like they treat us, huh? And I just I said, okay, because that's how they interpret the law to fit their own good with us as melanated people. And I said, ooh. And then he said something else that was really interesting in his speech on YouTube or with Fox News. He said he was in there and he saw how the law was used against lots of people. Not what the law really says, but what they say the law says.
Yeah, Indigenous and Rob Blogovich. Yeah, thank you. Peace and love. Yeah.
And he spent 8 years in prison being treated, like a nigger. I said, whoa, are you serious? He said he did not break any laws. He didn't do anything that's illegal, but yet they said he did because the prosecutors do it their way. And when you're in court, and I have jury duty coming up, I hate it. But when you're in court, they, I think they have a game going on. It's like, well, I won the last one. It's your turn to win this one, and now you can win this. And they play games with people's lives in that place. And for us, if you go on jury duty, they'll go back 100 years to any relative that you had that had a crime to dismiss you from the jury. It's just a waste of time for us to spend our time trying to get on the jury of your peers.
And it don't be your peers. Let's make that clear. It's not your peers because, Pookie them that's being, arrested and tried, and not saying that Pookie them didn't do the crime, this, that, and the third, but I am just saying that if it's supposed to be judged by your peers, we know that it's not always the case. Most of the times, that's not the case.
Well,
Scotty Saturn said they got me for jury duty in LA too, my first time. Child, good luck. I know you're going to be in that MF all day.
They're just sitting there so they can get you publicly and just diss you in front of everybody about what your relatives did that have nothing to do with you. You got to tell them everything. DUIs, felonies, parking tickets, or whatever. They ask you about anybody in your family. And I'm like, well, what does that to do with my
Right. Well, you know how they roll.
Well, one of the cases that I was in there on, I never got on the stand for questioning, cross-examining, is that this young Caucasian youth said something derogatory to a young melanated man, and he wanted to fight the European person, and the European stabbed him to death. And he was the one who instigated the whole thing. I don't know how that case turned out, because they made sure, because the European called him a nigger.
Mm-hmm.
And they made sure that every melanated person did not get on that jury. And that defense attorney kept asking people, what did they think about being called a nigger? And I'm like, how can you ask them what it's like to be called a nigger and they not one? Because it was Mexicans and white folks they were talking to. And they wanted to downplay, I know what the word means now, But
Right.
at that time, it was an insult to be called
Mm-hmm.
that. And he just kept bringing that word up the whole time to desensitize people to that word. It's just a very unfair system for everybody, obviously. And that's one of the things I found out when I heard Roy Govich, Govich, or something like that. He was doing his little speech on Fox. And so I'm like, wow. But I appreciated the prayers coming up here, even though I don't care for the man. But he just hit stuff head on. I mean,
Right.
you have water, and you dump it in the ocean, and everybody else goes without. That's crazy. He said they were going to charge Southern California, I guess, for only 50 gallons of water. That was going to be our limit, I guess, this year coming up.
Well, Cali's always had an issue with you all's water. Damn, what's that movie? If y'all ever haven't seen it, it has the title of China in it. Little Big Town China, something like that. And it's got Jack Nicholson in there. And it's about California's water wars and how California was stealing water, but California has always had an issue with water, the way you all are getting the water. But we know that they're suppressing technology where they can take water out of the ocean and take that salt out of it. But that's a different story. But yeah.
Desalting, they can desalt that water, and they do have technology for that. Israel does that. And to water their stuff, right?
Right.
But
yeah.
when they come to California, they won't ship the water south. They'll dump it in the ocean. And of course,
it's a mess.
we have companies that buy the water.
Right.
And they put farmers out of business because the farmers have to quit farming because they don't have any water and their taxes and all that kind of stuff. And so then these big corporations go in and they buy the land, the farmland. So then that means the food prices go up.
Right. A Left Lame and Scotty Saturn, Scotty in both chat rooms, Scotty a mess. But a Left Lane said that movie I was referring to is Chinatown. I'm telling you, go watch that movie, Chinatown. It tells the whole story back up in the day about California's water, because as the population started growing, this, that, and the third. Oh, somebody said Big Trouble in Little China. It's one of them. Yao. Yeah, it's one of them, but it has Jack Nicholson in it, and it's supposed to take place either in the 30s or 40s. And it's about the conspiracy of California water woes. Now, I don't know if California has changed it. I'm assuming they haven't, because y'all still got them water restrictions. I know last time I was there, everybody's grass was brown. Okay.
We have water restrictions. Last year we had you can't water on even days if your address ended with an even number.
Okay, yeah.
You know, and all this kind of crap. And then your water bill go up and you don't even have water on in the wintertime. Why's the water bill going up? They manipulate free resources because they say they have to take care of their equipment. Well, if you didn't interrupt the water, we wouldn't have any equipment. That's how they do it. It's really bad.
All right, so Scotty Saturn did confirm the name of the movie is Chinatown. It came out in 1974 with Jack Nicholson, Faye Dunaway. Oh, I didn't know John Huston was in there. He was probably young, so I didn't recognize him. The water fight that inspired Chinatown. Got you. Okay, yep, came from a quote out of New York Times. Yes, sis, I feel you on that. I definitely feel you on
something
that.
that's really bad. California is Democratic. Trump is Republican. And I bet he done stepped on a lot of nerves come on over here talking about we going to get some water. But that's what we should get.
Well, California is a mess. I actually have a follow-up that I want to discuss on Cali also. I'm going to get into that. So, Brother Sean, do you have any go-ahead on with the fuckery?
Actually, I don't.
What? Okay. All right. Well, it's all good. It's all good. So again, shout out to everybody in YouTube. Looks like we're rocking and rolling. So shout out to Stan and Wakwa, and then we do still have some people on Blog Talk. Left Lane. I haven't seen you in a minute, and Mons Lydia. Haven't seen you in a minute also. So peace unto you all, and of course, big ups to Scotty Saturn, who's said he has OCD because he in both. He on YouTube and Blog Talk. You probably got your phone on too. That's what Blog Talk. We go into overtime. I see him in purple still chopping it up. I'm like, oh, I'm not sure if y'all can hear me. Nah, we here. We on the phone, still in the chat. So, peace and love to all. So, okay, before I go into my follow-ups, 310, I'm going to come to you, sweetheart. I am not sure if you intended to have your hand up. And just for anyone on YouTube, if you want to dial in and put something on it, you can still do that at 929-477-3858, 929-477-3858, and just press 1 to get in the queue. So, all right, 310, I'm coming to you. I'm not sure if you mean to be here. Peace and love. Your line is open. All right, 310. Going once, going twice. All right, I'm going to mute you, sweetheart. I'm assuming you didn't mean to press 1. Okay, here we go. Yeah, I got so much follow-up. Sis, I think I'm going to save the article I had. You probably already know this. I know you know this, so I'll just make the announcement on it. But PG&E is going forward with the bankruptcy. So that's going to be interesting. I don't know if they're doing that, if they're going to totally take that company out.
The state is trying to take over that.
Okay.
PG&E, I have PG&E, and PG&E estimated 2018 for me and gave me 7 months of extra money to pay off. And I think that's really illegal when I've been paying the whole time.
Right.
But I haven't said nothing because I'm just trying to pay the stupid thing off.
Right.
And on gas. So somebody said, the guy said gas is the cheapest thing we got going. And here they come and just estimate. So when we were out, people were out of electricity when they had it blacked out. They had to pay for that. And then the government said, you give those people at least $100 back. So PG&E is trying to saturate the customers with debt to try to get themselves out of debt. And I'm one of the customers, okay? Mm-hmm. So I'm really, and I've been here many, many years, and I am just really ticked off that they send you notices on extra money they didn't bill you if you don't pay it. So if they are that way and they act like that, they need to go bankrupt.
Yeah, but I think it's all planned anyway because they knew all of this stuff was going to jump off. They knew that lawsuits were going to follow all of those fires. So the bankruptcy is a way for them, depending on if they're doing Chapter 11 or 7. I think they're doing 11, but don't quote me. Okay. Yeah, they would have to pay a reduced sum. So they already know what time it is. I just didn't know if they were going to totally shut that down and just start something up. Because if you look at these utilities and who's on the boards of these utilities, all of them tie back to the energy industry. So you have different ones, from different utilities sitting on each other's board on the utilities as well as the oil companies, because the oil, the gas, and the electric, all of them are tied together, right? That's why all of those board members pretty much cross each other. And if you do a little research on the history of these utilities, you'll see how they all got started and how the government split them up. And the government literally controls and tells them how much rate can they charge because they are considered a quote quote monopoly. So yeah, the utilities are absolutely considered a monopoly. So I have an article on the PG&E bankruptcy, but for the sake of time, I won't read it. It was just to give you all an update, but you can certainly go out there and read it. All right, y'all. So before I forget, shout out to Camario. I may not be pronouncing that brother's name right. He has his own YouTube channel. He does a lot of research on the indigenous, Aboriginal, Negro, us being the true Indian. So he put out, let me tell you, he put out a fire video. Marcus Garvey and his white friends, Plecker, Anglo-Saxon Clubs of America, John Powell, and Ernest Cox. I urge you to go listen to that brother's video. His research, as usual, was impeccable. Now, we did a show last year. We did one show. We only did one show talking about how all of these different organizations and how all of these movements are connected and they come out of the secret societies. And I said, pay attention to these folks that are starting up these movements. Pay attention to what they wear, because you will see them tie back to those secret societies. And I said a lot of the times people starting these movements, what they do with these particular, I call them social engineering secret societies, because that's exactly what they are. They'll spin up two opposing movements just to control the narrative and keep the populations under control. And every quote, quote, melanated movement, has been infiltrated, and 99% of the time was probably started by someone in some type of order, some type of secret society order. And I said that Garvey was no different. I'm sorry, go ahead.
They all backed by shekels. I say they all backed by shekels.
What is that?
You know what shekels is. You know who money that is.
Oh, yeah. Got you. 1, 2, buckle my shoe. Yeah. Agreed. Absolutely. Yep. Scotty Saturn said the same thing. Yep. So basically, I said the same thing about Garvey, but I said with Garvey, look at his outfit. Look at the getup that he wears. That's the secret society order that he's wearing. Okay? So in this video, Camiro, and brother, please forgive me if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly, did an excellent job. Marcus Garvey and his white friends, Carameo. Oh, that's pretty. I actually like that. Carameo. Marcus Garvey and his white friends, Plecker. Now we know Plecker's funk ass was the one literally writing out the indigenous folks. Okay, writing out our ancestors. And the rest of these folks were literally in the KKK. Were like heads of KKK's chapter that Garvey was kicking it with, and going back and forth, writing each other, talking about he understand their movement, they're supporting him, and his movement, woo, 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 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, people should have a clue when Garvey got brought up on business fraud because they said he was misappropriating money, that donations that he had taken for his shipping or one of his companies, some old bullshit. And so he went to jail, and then he was deported back to England. He wound up there. He's literally buried there today. And so when I found that out, I'm like, I'm wondering if he was one of European bloodline, melanated European bloodline that came over to the Americas. Because I just found it odd that, although he was from Jamaica, and the crown is invested in Jamaica. That's what a lot of people say. That's why he went back there and was buried there. I just still thought the shit was odd. So anyway, shout out to that brother, and please do, when you get an opportunity, check that out on YouTube, because he did excellent work on that. Yes, so Mr. Tyrese goes, it seems from looking into the Black Royals, sound like he might be Black Irish. I would agree, because remember when we did that Black Nobility series, we talked about a lot of those Irish were deported to Jamaica. So yeah, I was saying either British, because that's where they deported him back to, or he could be a Black Irishman. So yeah, I totally agree with you. And then Scotty goes, never even went to Africa. Yeah, ain't that some bullshit? Never even went to Africa, but trying to get us to go there. Absolutely. What's the brother's name again? Sean, pronounce it again for me.
It's either Carameo or Corinio.
Okay, I like do both, say both ways. Okay, I like Carameo. So I'm gonna say Carameo. Hope goes, Carameo shut those Pan-Africans down. Oh yeah, because he brings his receipts big time. They can't fuck with him on that research. So shout out to him, a very good work. I'm sorry, go ahead, Brother Sean.
Marcus Garvey was associated with royalty. People forget that Jamaica and Britain are tied together, because Jamaica was a British colony also.
Exactly. And that's why people were saying that he was deported back there. I'm like, oh, well, okay, if you say so.
That's where he was a citizen from.
Okay. I didn't know that. I thought he was born in Jamaica. Or do I
have British?
Oh, they become British citizens. So yeah, but if you're born on that island, I thought that they have dual citizenship per se. If that makes sense.
Either way, he wasn't American.
Well, yeah, but trying to get folks to go back to Africa, get the fuck out of here with that. So it is what it is.
Now they talking about Britain, whether or not Britain should give Jamaicans reparations.
Yes, and they were talking about because I think it was in 1929 that they gave Jamaicans that came over to Britain to work citizenship, and then recently was trying to take it back, and I'm like, y'all need to stop fucking playing games, because it's the same people anyway. Oh, they was getting rid of the men? Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, well, what else is new? Yeah, well. So it's the same shit that we told y'all, how the narrative of slavery went. These motherfuckers was transporting people from port to port. So from European port to American port, So it's the same shit. Africa was lightly involved on the transport of folks. All right, so let me bring on brother 832. I think you got cut off last week before we get into it. So let me bring you on, brother. Peace and love, brother 832.
Roger! Sandra! My sisters from other misters! Feathers up!
Feathers up, brother.
United Snakes of America down!
Feathers up, brother.
My brother from another mother, sitting on Mount Olympus, throwing them black lightning bolts down tonight.
Indeed, bro.
My sister, I have heard that young brother call himself Kuri Mayo.
Kuri Mayo. That's pretty too.
Yeah. But that's the young brothers of feathers. Him, Medicine Man, Populous One, Dane Calloway, Phoenix Moon. I forgot the other sister too.
Tasha Chi.
Yeah. See, by the way, maybe a continuation of my TV review from last week for the Millennials. You are familiar with the Originals, the spinoff of Vampire Diaries, right?
Yes.
The Originals, the vampires with the werewolves, the witches, and down in the French Quarter of New Orleans. This is working its way through its 5th season. It's going on further than the Vampire Diaries that spun off from that. But there's a brother named Marcellus who has become the king of New Orleans. And the young redhead daughter of the two hybrids has become the most powerful witch that is being utilized through this, what they call the Hollow, an ancient spirit, another female deity, if you will, demigod or ancestral power broker, that tried to destroy the entire tribe of quote-unquote Native Americans. Now, like you were just pointing out, the predicament for us is to continue utilizing what they use as identifiers, okay? The Native American is on the debate stage represented by Pocahontas, Elizabeth Warren right now as we speak, right? But
yes.
The Negro American, because that's what the American Indian was described by good old Merriam-Webster in 1828, is always going to be forever etched in their definition of copper-colored race.
Right.
So, these Mongoloid, Caucasoid hybrids and these Caucasians who have come over here under the Dawes roll, everything else that you just said is a variation of what went down in Jamaica, whether it's Garvey or, any other island. But if you notice, where is Farrakhan from? Barbados? Sean?
To be honest, I don't know.
He was Calypso Louis. When he started his violin career,
What? I didn't know that.
Rush Limbaugh as Calypso Louis.
Right.
Even with, Deo.
That's what's his face. Me wanna go home. I forget what island he's from. Yeah.
And this is no disrespect to these brothers. They all just happen to be light-skinned. Or if we talk about the feud that went down with Dane and the so-called Dagger Squad and your good old, what is his name? That all of a sudden this turncoat Sonetta.
Oh, yeah.
Up in the NYC, all from the Caribbean. Now, this buying into one last thing too, if you haven't seen that history series that's going on. They did Washington over the weekend for President's Day, but last night during the debate was Black Patriots, executive produced by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Extremely insightful. But here's the key thing that jumped out at me. We have heard the infamous mythology of Christmas Patty, but what was reported last night on the show was that he was half, and I'm using air quotes, half breed, born of an African father and a Native American mother. Now, if we can't, get some clarity and understanding as a people with a lot of the confusion that will be raised with the reparations discussion and our young millennials and Generation Z that are pushing ADOS, which is American, not African, American descendant of slaves.
Right.
That we should work on the collective consciousness. It's not an either or, it never has been an either or issue for me. It's the issue of both and. And the question is, if you want to claim Africanness, that's fine. I mean, that's no different than, certain, demented and delusional Negroes who want to claim being from Ireland or Italy or Greece or, whatever. We can claim whatever we want to claim since we have been stolen from everywhere. Okay?
True.
But I still would make the comparison of the gumbo, since we talked about New Orleans and the original. The roux, the stock. We're not any piece or part of the gumbo. The okra, the corn, the shrimp, the crab. The roux. That's the autochthonous Aboriginal inhabitants of this land. Everything else is amalgamated onto that stock. You feel me? So that's what I share with the millennial sister tonight. Is that when you look at the originals, don't forget, of course, they are portraying Caucasianism because that's Hollywood. But I point out an example of Marcellus, who happens to be the adopted slave of the lead character, who's the most vicious, violent vampire of them all, Klaus. By the way, the name Nick Klaus, Michael's son, meaning of a Viking origin. Okay? And they are setting up shop in New Orleans, one of the most ancient cities. And you know what our good sister, Warhorse, Chiefess Warhorse, tells us about how us unraveling what is our origins will come from us doing, as you say, every week, cleaning up our bloodline.
Right.
Now, I'm in the middle of waiting on a conference call tonight about the same thing that we're talking about. I have assisted or attempted to contract a forensic genealogist. I am waiting to hear back from a brother out of Australia to utilize this whatever game they play with DNA, 23andMe and Ancestry.com.
Right.
But we don't have the resources and the scholarship independent of being told who we are. So as we continue on this journey, the discussion is never about them, though we continue to allow them to be the priority.
Exactly.
We are the origin. We are the originals, pun intended. And we have to start dictating the narrative, thereby forming the debates. And I
Indeed.
yield.
Indeed. Thank you, brother 832. Glad we were able to get you in. So yeah, I think that's what we're gonna have to do from now on. You're gonna have to get in here early, so you won't be rushing to the end. So he reminded me, brother 832 reminded me, okay, y'all, there is a movie, I think it's on HBO. It's called Queen Mary the Queen of Scots, Queen Mary, something like that. Really good. Based on all that we've been learning on who is who with the Black Nobility series and this series. Once you watch that, you're gonna be like, oh hell no. So just to sum it up, it's about King James' mama. All right. And how she was battling with her cousin. What was her cousin? Elizabeth. Battling with her cousin Elizabeth. And so she, in the movie, they say that Mary is a steward. And by blood right, she is the heir of the throne for Scotland, Britain, and Ireland. Okay, so of course, now the interesting part about this movie, they had two redhead ladies. Now I don't know if they redhead naturally, but they showed if they dyed their hair or whatever, playing these main roles. So Elizabeth hair was red, and Mary's hair was red. Now we know the true history. They were melanated women. Okay, and we especially know that about King James. Mama was melanated, all right? So a lot of times when you see them doing these European movies and they throw these redheads up in there, that's also kind of an inside joke for melanated. So the step-headed red child. So anyhow, it was very, very interesting movie. And if you pay attention, when she first hit the shores of Scotland, I think it was, because she had came back from France, because her husband in France had passed and she came back home. So when she first hit the shores of Scotland, she was getting off this little boat. And I can't make this shit up. This statue dropped in the water, and so her servants pulled up the statue, and it was a melanated Madonna and Child, and I just fell the fuck out laughing. And then if you pay attention to some of the pictures in the back, they'll show I think it was the true Elizabeth. They showed a portrait of her in bronze and showed where she was clearly melanated. But the moral of that one was how Elizabeth did not want Mary to rule, and in the movie they were claiming it was because of religion, because England wanted to stay Protestant, and Mary had converted to, she was a Catholic, although King James, who she birthed, wound up being a Protestant, and he went to battle. But anyhow, it just shows that power struggle among them, and how the stewards were still trying to get back up on the throne. So she had to wind up having a child because she wanted an heir. And so, because Elizabeth never did marry, never did have any children. And so there's been so many rumors about her, rumors that she's gay, just a bunch of rumors. But anyhow, so Mary wound up having a child, and the child that she had was King James, her brother, her half brother, wound up raising King James. But Elizabeth, her cousin, wind up killing Mary. And then of course we know that King James ruled, and he wound up ruling all three of those kingdoms. So yeah, when you get a chance, check out that movie. It's actually pretty good. It's not dry at all. It's Mary, I think it's the last queen of Scotland or something like that. I know it is running on HBO. I'm not sure if you can find it on Netflix or whatever. Mary, Queen of Scots. Oh, okay, it was an HBO movie. I didn't know that Scotty Saturn. I so happened to run across it. So rivalry between Mary Stuart, who returns to Scotland from France to reclaim her rightful throne, and her first cousin Elizabeth the First, who rules as the Queen of England. Absolutely. So it's really, really a good movie. They did a great job. So definitely check it out. All right. So here we go. What I wanted to share with the family. Now I got to pick because time is getting up there. Sis Cheryl, Brother Israel on Facebook, shout out to him. He threw me also some material. I be having so much, y'all. I have to pick through what to share because of time's sake. So I truly appreciate it. I try to look at everything that people send me, but it's hard to get it all on the air. So just want to say I don't think that I don't appreciate it. And shout out to Israel on Facebook. He always sends me great stuff as well. So this is from Sis Sherrill. This is the possible African origin of the royal families of Germany. What site is this? Royal Foil List. All right. So this came out in 2013. The darkly hued lady was Princess Charlotte Sophia, hereditary princess of the German Duchy of Mecklenburg, Schwerin, a princess of the Germany Duchy of Saxe-Coburg-Saalfeld. All right, and I know Purple Pill, you could get up in here. You know all of these damn European words because you dabbled a lot over there. All right, so she lived from 1731 to 1810. She's an ancestress of the royal families of Great Britain, the Netherlands, and the former imperial family of Germany. The current claimant to the Russian throne is also descendants of hers. Okay, so we told y'all that even that Russian throne was melanated. All right? Right. So a cursory look at her visage indicates a woman who possessed a significantly degree of African ancestry. So in other words, she was dark, y'all, because you know they want to say all of us came from Africa that were dark, which we know that's not the case. But anyhow, a cursory look at her visage indicates a woman who possessed a significant degree of African ancestry. Her parents, however, were standard issue 18th century German minor royals. And even though her father's portrait reveals him to be somewhat tan, there's no indication, at least on Wikipedia, that Charlotte Sophia ancestry possessed any African antecedents at all. Yet her portrait strongly suggests that she did. It's possible that one of her royal parents had a secret affair, here we go with the bullshit, with an African servant that resulted in Charlotte's birth. Such retainers, particularly of the dwarfish variety, abound throughout the courts of Europe at that time. All right, now if I remember correctly, they also were eunuchs. So y'all could come up with that bullshit. All right? A lot of those eunuchs, and again, those thrones were held by melanated people. So anyhow, okay, so it's also possible that the African features of Charlotte and various other German royals since the medieval age, most notably Queen Charlotte Sophia of Great Britain, provide clues to the importance and little reported role that has played throughout Europe and particularly German royal history. The crust of many a German aristocrat and royal families contain the profiles of African men's heads. Okay? When we did that Black Nobility series, I ran across a lot of those European crests with melanated men on it. And anybody that spent any time in Europe, this is not hidden knowledge. They still have the shit throughout Europe. You look up and you see the statues of the melanated royals. Okay, you see the crest. I remember when one of the Caucasian royals on the Britain side, I forget old girl's name, had on one of those crests with the melanated man. And everybody's dumbass, oh, she's being racist. I'm like, you stupid fuckers. She's showing you all that that's that original bloodline of Europe. People couldn't catch it. Okay? So what I'm trying to say, this shit is not hidden over there. I know Purple Pill dropped in the chat when he went over there that he saw a lot of that. I've been told personally by a person, a Caucasian guy that grew up a little time in Europe, told me how he knew that melanated people sat on those thrones and how the Moors ruled Spain, blah, blah, blah. So he was testing me to see if I knew. And I said to him, I said, well, that's good that you know that, because not most here know that. All right. So, but again, it's only Americans that want to fucking play the dumb role, because Americans want to live in this fucking fantasy on how this corporation was started and how they fit into the American dream. All right, so here we go. One explanation for this is that these families were founded by knights who commemorated their victories over Islamic Moors, a significant portion of whom were sub-Saharan Africans, and the crusade by depicting the head of their vanquished enemies on their family crest. Now, do that shit make sense to y'all? Don't make sense to me, but okay. Yeah, if they want to roll with that, that's their business. And the crusade by depicting their heads of their vanquished enemies on their family crest. This certainly was the case for King Peter I of Aragon, and also explains why all of these crests date back to the Middle Ages. This does not, however, explain the distinctly mixed African appearance of many of the knights' descendants throughout history. In his classic 3-volume study of the history of miscegenation, sex, and race, Joel Rogers cites the work of British historian David McRitchie, whose explanation for the appearance of black men's heads in the heraldic shields of some British noble families is because these families were founded by black men. Rogers not only proved that some normal kings were black, but also asserts that the English last name Moore and all its variations originated from black Moorish knights who came to the British Isles and settled there after the Crusades. Furthermore, Rogers cites the research of J.A. Ringsrose, who asserts that the famous Scottish medieval knight Sholto the Douglas, an ancestor of the House of Windsor, was an African whose name in Gaelic, Sholto, means behold the black man. Could this explanation apply to the royal and aristocrat family of Germany as well? During the Crusades, the whole of what's now Germany was part of the Holy Roman Empire, which was deeply involved against the fight against the Saracens. Just as in Britain, it is possible that several Moorish knights, renowned for their skill as soldiers, switched sides, fought for the European Christians, then settled in the Germanic part of the empire, where they founded various dynasties that in time came to rule over that part of Europe. The fact that these dynasties only married each other and created an extremely small gene pool through generations of inbreeding is incontestable. Is it then possible that this inbreeding preserved the African features of these dynasties founded in their descendants several centuries after they had settled in Europe? The author lacks the proof to answer these questions in the affirmative, but the weight of the research he studies leads to such an explanation. Now, I don't know if you all remember when I said I don't have the receipts. I can't prove it. It's just intuition. But I felt that the first Caucasians that we saw holding the seats of power more than likely probably had mixed ancestry and ties back some type of way to these nobles.
But of course, that was the only way they could make a legal claim.
Exactly.
They had the blood. It's through the bloodline.
Absolutely.
The Vatican also has a flag and a crest with a Moor on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's also cut into the landscape on the ground.
Yep. Absolutely. And who does the Pope bow down to?
Black
Madonna.
That's that. Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead, sis.
I said he bowed down to a black Madonna.
Oh, yeah.
Elam was one of the brothers of the 12 of Joseph or Jacob or whatever. I keep getting confused. And he was the head of the Saracens. So we're parrying back to Abraham's seed, and Elam was one of the sons.
Wow.
In Noah's chain, and that's the leader of the Saracens.
Okay.
And they were fighting their cousins.
Mm-hmm.
I looked up the Saracens because, or actually Elam, Elam. I can't remember what rank he is. You know, it's like the 12, and they split off to. They had several sons and all that kind of stuff. So he was one of them, and he was the one that was raising Cain with his own cousins and trying to take them down. And the Saracens ruled, I think it's during the Byzantines in that era. Yeah, they were pretty powerful. The Ottomans and the Byzantines and the Saracens.
Wow. All right now. All right, so it goes. I only have two more paragraphs. This is certainly a plausible reason for the famously mixed African appearance of Queen Charlotte Sophia, consort of Britain's King George III. All right, so I'm gonna say again, King George. One of them King Georges was known as Black Boy. So they can go on this fuck shit of appearing mixed, because when I see Queen Charlotte Sophia's picture, she just looked like a light-skinned sister. She looked like a light-skinned that we would call red bone, light skin with the motherfucking like reddish, blondish hair. So they can go on with the fuck shit. She in no shape, way, form, or fashion looks Caucasian. She looks like a red bone. And King George's was called Black Boy. That was his nickname. So sorry, go ahead. Yeah, so they can go on with that. Yeah, that fuckery. Yeah. So it says, not only was she born a German princess of Saxe-Coburg, but one of her family's heraldic shields is predominantly by the African Saint Maurice. All right? They can't deny Maurice being melanated. She was also her husband's first cousin, owing to the father and his mother being brother and sister. Although not as pronounced as his wife's, King George III also possessed the thick facial features often associated with people of at least partial African ancestry. They could kill me with that. I thought that one drop made you melanated. So now y'all want to motherfucking flip-flop? Fucking flip-floppers. Anyway, it has already been proven by historian Mario de Valdez that Queen Charlotte possessed at least one distant Moorish ancestress, Magragana, a mistress of King Alfonso III of Portugal. She may have possessed many more besides. Of course, this post doesn't count as a royal foible because it isn't describing a misdeed or what the author would consider an embarrassing episode in the history of the royal families of Europe. African ancestry, however, is definitely not something most European royal families have been willing to acknowledge, particularly during the last 400 years. Yeah, no shit. Because the last 400 years was when Caucasians took power. And they were set to take power. So all of the paintings of the royals during that time frame beforehand, they either totally redid them or they literally whitewashed them. Literally whitewashed them. All right. The advent of the Atlantic slave trade, which many of them profited from the development of the colonial empires, which were in many ways more cruelly exploitative than the slave trade, and many royal families also profited from. And the flourishing of fascism during the first half of the 20th century have all conspired to create an atmosphere of racism among Europe titled elite that have precluded them and many of their authorized historians from looking too deeply into their past. The author hopes that he is among a new breed of royal historians who will redress this wrong. Okay, so this is a decent article. It's a decent start. Again, we know that those particular royals, that's why I call them black nobility, were the ones ruling those thrones, and Caucasians did not start taking those roles until the late 1800s. So in the comment of this article, someone goes, great article. Finally, the truth is getting out there. I am a black descendant of the House of Oldenburg, and King Christian of Denmark is one of my ancestors. I am glad to see the truth is getting out there. There are probably a lot of portraits hidden away in castles all over Europe hiding the truth. All right, so and a couple of other people posted in the comments as well. So this is off of Royal Foil Bliss. You can catch that article. All right, so sis or Brother Sean, you all have anything you want to put on it? Because I do want to share a real quick video. We've shared this before, but I want to bring it back up to refresh folk memories.
Only thing I have to say is the Europeans came up out of Africa, or the continent they call Africa now. Remember, because your map said Africa was just
absolutely
like a little squash, a little section up there. So I think that was when they started talking about the Out of Africa movement. Remember that movie Out of Africa? You talked about it too, where they came up out of the areas of Africa and took over Europe and took down our people when they came up there. And you said that 70% of the Europeans are out of Africa, and they are the ones that came up out of there with that R1B1.
Right.
Right. And so, I mean, if you look at what we're having today with this carnivora, there was one British man who gave that virus to 11 people. So, and they probably will be hard hit because of their ancestry. They do have of the mongrel, as you call them. So
right.
It's going to be an interesting. It's going to be an interesting thing how many people get affected, because even Russia is closing their doors to people of Asian descent, of Chinese descent, because they understand what that thing is about, and they're closing it off so they don't become affected, because they have that mongrel DNA as well.
Right.
But us, if they say that we're out of Africa, there's an article that says that we're resistant to that bacteria. So that means we can't be out of Africa.
Right.
But that's right. That's what they say we are, which is not truth. You know my theory on where it happened. So
yeah. Right. True that. It's no. Sis, shout out to Purple Pill joined us, and Woke Sister. I like that. Woke Sister, and on Blog Talk chat, and then And on the YouTube chat, where'd your comment go? Okay, the original copper empress goes, here in the castle, here as well as the old state prisons, are castles that they turned them into prisons. And that is an excellent point, original copper empress, because I never thought about that shit until I started doing the research on Europe and the connection with melanated folks, this, that, and the third. And I started, then that made me, actually, Brother Sean and I started looking at the old buildings and architecture in these different cities. And I do have to give a shout out to the mud flood community for leading me down that road, looking at the old architecture, and John Levy as well. But yeah, I thought about all of those prisons that look like castles. You're absolutely right. They were originally castles.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So you're absolutely right. Exactly. You're absolutely right. Excellent, excellent catch. And again, all you have to do, each city in the Americas, it will shock me if they do not have buildings whose architecture ties back to that old Victorian European look that was built in the 1800s. Most of that stuff was destroyed purposely to hide not only the technology but also who was really ruling. But some of them they did still save, and you could truly look at the architecture and you could see that it ties back to Europe and ties back to Rome. So yeah, hidden in plain sight. Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead, Brother Sean.
A lot of funeral homes back in the day used to be castles. The old hospitals, the old insane asylums. You know, they turned them all into something nefarious where you wouldn't want to go there and do the research or take the time to try and figure out what it is.
Right.
Yes, they ghost and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
There probably is all that stuff going on for real. But since you brought up the mongoloids and the coronas and whatnot, them motherfuckers everywhere. We surrounded by them. They done took every goddamn nationality and infused with everything.
Who, the Mongoloids?
Yeah.
They're the descendants of Khan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Yamnias. They everything.
They everywhere. They Mexicans. They everything. Anywhere you go, you see them. But they all a different nationality.
Right.
Exactly. Right. Iranian.
They set up shop everywhere.
Yep.
Indian, Saudis, all of them.
And if this is a disease that targets their DNA and could possibly infect others, they the perfect carriers for it.
Right. They're everywhere.
Why you say carriers? Oh, because they are so spread, and because their DNA is so spread out.
Yeah. It don't matter just because they call themselves Spanish now.
Yeah, true.
Their DNA say something totally different.
Yes, it does.
Call yourself.
That is absolutely right. That's right. Indeed.
But they all be quiet, and we just focus on the quote-unquote Caucasian.
Right.
They all part of the same clique. And it's more of them than it is quote-unquote Caucasian.
Absolutely.
We ain't got our eye on everybody and everything.
True that.
being so narrow.
Exactly. Narrowly focused. Exactly. That's why I try to get the family to get out of that whole black white thing, because it's deeper than that and it's bigger than that. You really have to look at folk bloodline. So that crosses across the Mongoloid side, Caucasian side, and goddamn it, the melanated side. And especially if you melanated, you really better have your quote quote spidey sensors in order to figure out who is who, and don't be just looking at that complexion, because this shit is deep and it's spiritual. It is spiritual because it's out to trap your energy, to keep ciphering your energy, and to keep you coming back to be ciphered on some fuck shit.
Yeah, and if you are from royal bloodline someplace else, y'all went through some shit too.
Indeed.
Why not put your resources into that? Because the whole planet is ours, is our mother.
Right.
I mean, these demarcation lines and dividing shit up and saying, I own this, you own that, this, that, and other. All that's bullshit.
Yes, it is. It's against nature.
So we have to take it back on a whole. They took it from us on a whole with world wars. We right in the middle of one. It has never stopped. We just start letting ourselves be entertained. They can't quote unquote kill us because energy can't be created or destroyed. So we stay in this fucked up loop and continue to be entertained instead of taking care of business.
Exactly.
Mama doing her part. She always has. Even when she was asleep, she was still providing for us.
That's right.
Now she woke.
Yep.
Bullshit over.
It is. It's all the way over. It is all the way over.
It's either you gonna be who you are, or you won't be. Because you gotta answer to mama. This ain't about answering to no white man.
Right.
Or no sky daddy.
Exactly.
But if y'all paying attention to what's going on, as far as the weather and everything, the magnetic pole.
Right.
Every place is affected, but here. And y'all still acting like fools, still ain't paying attention. When it hit here, it's over. The whole party is over.
It's over. Yep.
But what you gonna be doing?
Exactly.
Everything ain't gonna be gone. It's a matter of what frequency you vibrate at determines whether or not you make it out.
Indeed.
That's all in knowing. And we share all this with y'all in order for you to find out who you are.
Indeed.
We know who we are. We doing what we supposed to do. And there's plenty of y'all that's doing the same thing.
Indeed.
But now we got to take that next step. If you took care of your business in the spiritual realm, you already know what's about to happen.
Right.
And you got some popcorn. You ain't stressing yourself out.
Mm-mm.
You ain't going through all that bullshit. You enjoying yourself, goddammit. You're free.
Indeed.
You're God. Enjoy your goddamn self. You know it's all bullshit. Enjoy yourself, son.
Exactly.
We got this.
Indeed. Okay, so I'm gonna insist I'm getting a lot of feedback from you. So when you're not on, just put yourself on mute. I'm not sure if you were moving out and about, but go ahead on, sis.
Sorry, I was moving. I wanted to correct something I did about the mud flood, 1811, 1812. It was a comet that hit, but it was only in the Midwest. That's where I was doing some research on it, and they said it was only in the Midwest.
Okay.
And we're mostly focused on the East Coast, so that comment too about it destroyed the Moors and stuff. That was from a Moor that wrote that. That wasn't part of Benjamin Franklin's paper.
Got you.
I think they inserted that in there somewhere.
Of course. All right. That makes sense. No worries. Okay, family. So I've played this video before. It's 2 parts to it, but I'm only going to play the second part. It's called African and Negroes Are Not the Same. And it's off of a YouTube channel called Truth is a Bitter Pill. So again, it's probably one part. It's 1 part video, y'all, but because the way I have to upload it to YouTube, I split it up into 2 parts. So I'm gonna play the second part. It's only 8 minutes, and then we're gonna be right back to chop it up. So here we go. Africans and Negroes are not the same.
But pharaohs had the birthright. Yeah, but you'll see what happens is they connect together in the end in the bloodline. So yeah, the proof of this is in 4th Street in Totnes. You can go right in the street. There's the Brutus Stone, which is where he's said to have set foot in Totnes. Also in London, the Church of St Swithin, there's a stone which Brutus brought from Troy, and again you can go to that church and see it. And I already mentioned about the Trinovantes. Also, this is a tapestry showing the epic battle between Quirinius and the red-haired giant at Plymouth Hoe. So Quirinius, after his epic battle, he was given Cornwall, and that's Cornwall was actually named after Quirinius. And yeah, there were up until I think it was 1486. There were chalk drawings of 2 giants, or 1 giant and a smaller man. This was commemorating Quirinius and Gog Magog. And right here, there's a news story saying that they want to recreate the chalk drawings on Plymouth Hoe. So, and also in the Lord Mayor's parade in London, they parade 2 giants, Gog and Magog. It's just a corruption of Gog, Magog and Quirinius. So, as I said, Britain, or British, means land of the covenant. It's a Hebrew word. And as I said, it's a covenant between the Hebrews and the Creator. So, are we keeping the covenant? Just a quick word about the Anglo-Saxons. The word Saxon actually means sons of Isaac. Okay, the Anglo-Saxons means the angelic sons of Isaac. The angelic sons, and there's been some confusion about this, the angelic sons are the ones that exhibited the fallen angel seed. So the original Saxons were dark-skinned, and the Anglo-Saxons were lighter-skinned. And I didn't actually mention this when I was talking about Greece, but this is the modus operandi of this bloodline. Okay, what they would do is, when there was a population they wanted to conquer, they would infiltrate this population. They would sort of arrive in few numbers, and then some more and a few more, until they had enough power, and they would take over that population, become those people, and rewrite history so you don't know about those people. Okay? And the same thing happened in Germany, Saxony. There was the original Saxons, and then this bloodline came in, took over, and they became the Anglo-Saxons. So it kind of brings us to King James the sixth and the first. He was a black man. Okay. Now you can go to the National Portrait Gallery and you'll see a white guy looking back at you, but those portraits were basically repainted. Okay. What couldn't be painted over were engravings. And in the 1611 Bible, there's an engraving of a black man. He was actually, again, an Israelite of the royal house of Judah, descended from the Pharaoh's line. Okay, but what came in through France. Sorry, yeah, got that. So yeah, so he was the one who had the Bible translated as faithfully as possible at the time, because it says in the foreword, actually, that there were people, and he meant the Roman Catholic Church, who wanted to destroy the word of the Most High. And he didn't want that to happen, so that's why he had the Bible translated. He sat on the thrones of England, Scotland, Ireland, and France, actually, and he unified them into one kingdom. And I said, there's the bogus painting of James. He's been smeared with allegations of homosexuality and sleeping with his mother, but they're all baseless claims. Because how can you be homosexual and have 9 children with your wife? You have to have an awful lot of sex to get 9 children, I think. So yeah, more pictures, engravings of him. And there's an engraving of James and his wife Anne of Denmark with a afro. Yeah. So he reunited the tribes of Israel in England. Right? The Union Jack means the reunification of Jacob. Okay, that's why under the throne, the coronation throne, is the stone of Scone, which is the stone of destiny, the stone of Jacob, the stone that Jacob rested his head on when he wrestled with an wrestled with an angel. Same thing, really. So yeah, that's why that stone is there, because this country is the New Jerusalem. You know, I probably wondered why that song Jerusalem comes from. Guy Fawkes was actually an agent of the Roman Catholic Church, and he wasn't about trying to get rid of Parliament. He was trying to assassinate James. Yeah, because the Roman Catholic Church wanted to stop the Bible being translated.
Well, Parliament was Protestant anyway, so that would have served them as well.
Probably, but the main aim was to kill James. So this is James' grandson, Charles II. Okay, there's also a white-niced version of him, but one painting did survive, and it matches up with again an engraving of Charles II, and he was the last of the Stuart line. And what happened was the Roman Catholic Church, or let's put it the Ashkenazi bloodline, basically finally succeeded in removing this royal line off the throne. and they replaced it with an Ashkenazi German bloodline. So what happened to the black peoples of the British Isles? Well, if you look closely at, I just want to draw your attention to one of the definitions of Negro. Number 3, any person with some Negro ancestors. Okay, just keep that in mind.
All right. Again, I just took a snippet of that particular video, but you could definitely go get the rest of the video. It's titled off of YouTube, African and Negroes Are Not the Same People. It's off of the YouTube channel, Truth is a Bitter Pill. Yeah, that person did a great job. And someone in the chat room, Helenese, said they just watched this. So yeah, pretty good stuff. All right, so we are going to move right along. Let's see if I have anything else I wanted to go over. I know I have so much stuff. I'll just save that for next week. Yeah, I'll save that for next week. We're going to get back into the material. All right, so again, the two main sources of material that we are using for the show, one is White Trash, The 400-Year Untold History of Class in America by Nancy Eisenberg, and the other one, They Were White and They Were Slaves, The Untold History of the Enslavement of Whites in Early America by Michael A. Hoffman. Okay, somebody sent me a message. I didn't miss it. Somebody called me out in the chat. Now I didn't miss it. All right, so let's get back. So last week we left off. We was on Andrew Jackson's ass. Okay, because we had finished up with Thomas Jefferson. And got me with Thomas Jefferson out of there that I had never known, that I learned that he was a big proponent of mixing with the races. Shouldn't have shocked me, since it's been well documented and tied through DNA that he had many children with Sally, a mulatto girl, that was quote quote his slave. But yeah, he was an advocate, Thomas Jefferson, of mixing with the melanated race. He claims to whiten up the race. So need a little bit education to do that, because it would take a lot of breeding with white and melanated to white up the race, just because of the melanated gene is stronger. But nonetheless, I don't hear them talking about that in American history. So if you're following along in the book, we're on page 107. Now we're on Andrew Jackson, and literally the woman titled this chapter, Andrew Jackson, Cracker Country. I'm not making this shit up. The squatter as common man. And so we also learned last week what the term cracker meant. And shit, now I gotta find it. Sisters, Brother Sean, do y'all remember? Or I have to go back and find it. As I was blown away when the author, Nancy Eisenberg, kind of broke down what that term cracker meant. I'll have to find it, family. I can't see it right now. I'll go back to it. I'll find it. Anyhow, all right. Early Republican America had become a cracker country. City life catered to a minority of the population, as the rural majority fanned outward to the edges of civilization. While the British made an attempt to prohibit Western migration through the Proclamation of 1763, the Revolutionary War removed such barriers and sequenced to the flood of oral migrants. Both crackers and squatters, two terms that became shorthand for landless migrants, supposedly stayed just one step ahead of the real farmers Jefferson idolized, commercially oriented cultivators. They lived off the grid, rarely attended school or joined a church, and remained a potent symbol of poverty. To be lower class in rural America was to be one of the landless. They disappeared to the unsettled territory and squatted down occupied tracts without possessing a land title anywhere and everywhere. If land-based analogies were still needed, they were not to be divided into grades of soil, as Jefferson had creatively conceived, but spread about as scrub foliage, or in bestial terms, mangy varmints infesting the land. Hell no. I know my sis listening. Let me take a sip of water. She gonna crack the hell up. We was literally last week, and she called somebody mangy, and I hit the goddamn floor. I'm like, I ain't heard mangy in a long time. So now we know where mangy comes from, sis. Because I always thought, when I used to hear my grandma say mangy, I thought of some raglass dog being mangy. But that's very, very interesting. All right. So the plight of the squatter was defined by his static nature and transient existence. With no guarantee of social mobility, the only gift he received from his country was the liberty to keep moving. Christopherson classic lyric resonates here. When it came to the cracker or squatter, freedom was just another word for nothing left to lose. Well, damn. Both squatter and cracker were Americanisms, terms that updated inherited English notion of idleness and vagrancy. Squatter, 1815 dictionary, was a cant name among the New Englanders for a person who illegally occupied land he did not own. An early usage of the word occurred in a letter of 1788 from Federalist Nathaniel Gorham of Massachusetts, writing to James Madison about his state's ratifying convention, identifying three classes of men opposed to the new federal constitution. He listed the former supporter of Shays' rebellion in the western countries, the undecided who might be led astray by opinionated others, and the constituents of Maine. This last group were squatters who lived upon other people's land and were afraid of being brought to account. Not yet a separate state, Maine was the wooded back country of Massachusetts. Oh, now that's interesting. And Gorham was about to become one of the most powerful speculators in the unsettled land of western New York State. In 1790, squatter appeared in a Pennsylvania newspaper, but was written as squattlers, describing men who inhabited the western borderlands of the state along the Susquehanna River. They were men who sit down on the river bottoms, pretend to have titles, and chase off anyone who dares to usurp their claims. Okay, so I'm going to pause real quick and just remind the family that the author, Nancy Eisenberg, also said in the South. So the part that the South to this day called Low Country, all of that was swampland. And squatters were also there, chilling, living, quote, quote, rent-free, and wasn't tilling the land or doing their duty as husbandry, which was really just tilling the land. And so it appears that there is a pattern, or there was a pattern with these squatters, that land that had not been settled and that they had considered swamp is where they took up, because also the author said that the folks from Europe, all of the king's boys now, they wasn't interested in actually doing the work in the land. They just wanted the profits from the land. So they really didn't have enough bodies to till all of that land. All right. And then nonetheless, I also just found it interesting that these areas now that are considered part of states, or that are their own states, were swamps. All right. And we do know that these European bloodlines, we told you all, and we brought the receipts, that it ties back to Rome, and they are excellent builders. Okay. So meaning they turned a lot of that swampland into inhabitable land by filling it up with dirt and this, that, and the third. Just like it was said that California was its own separate island with a river separating it. But as settlement started to happen, the Europeans with that Roman bloodline even filled that particular area up and made California become attached to what we now call the United States. All right. I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Brother Sean.
That might explain why down south some houses, well, most houses don't have a basement.
Yes.
Because it's on quote unquote swamp land.
Absolutely. Yeah, I thought about that. Yeah, I definitely thought about it. And the old timers in the South, along that low country line, I was talking to someone who's from South Carolina, and I was one of the towns there, and I said, yeah, I really like that town, blah blah, this, that, and the third. And one of my friends' people are from there. They literally have a city named after them, this, that, and the third. And so the person said, well, don't ever buy in that area. And I said, why? They said, because it floods. It always floods. And so I just started thinking about those little things. And I'm like, that shit makes sense why it always floods. Makes a lot of sense. All right. Interlopers and trespassers, unpoliced squatters, and crackers grew crops, cut timber, hunted and fished on land they did not own. They lived in temporary huts beyond the reach of civilizing forces of law and society, often in proximity to Native Americans. Okay, so let me get this straight. The squatters was minding their motherfucking business. Like, nah, fuck that. I'm not going up under you. That Romanistic system. I don't give a damn what you name it. It's not benefiting me. So, all right, y'all ain't using this land. So let me go on over here and chill. The quote Native American or the indigenous people, probably was like, look at them crazy ass white people living in the swamps. All right, well, that's their business. They ain't bothering nobody. So that's very interesting. All right, in Massachusetts and Maine, squatters felt they had the right to the land, or should be paid if they made improvements. That is, if they cleared away the trees, built fences, homes, and barns, and cultivated the soil. Their de facto claims were routinely challenged. Families were chased off, their homes burned. Squatters often refused to leave, took up arms, and retaliated. A Pennsylvania man in 1807 shot a sheriff who tried to eject them. Well, damn! Back up in 1807, the sheriff was still goddamn putting people out. Because that's how they do shit today. They send the sheriff to put folks out. That's interesting. All right, down Easter, Daniel Hildreth, tried and convicted of attempted murder in 1800, went after the proprietor himself. Slang to enter the vocabulary well after the condition it described has existed. And so the presence of the squatters predated the word itself. In Pennsylvania, as early as the 1740s, colonial officials issued stern proclamation to warn off illegitimate residents who were settling on the western lands of wealthy proprietors. Okay, so remember, she told you that those nobles sent their boys them over to manage the estates / the trust on their behalf. All right? But, you know, shit, they were pretty boys. They weren't the type, they weren't laborers. All right? So their responsibility was to make sure profit was generated off of that land. And when we read that Georgia Charter, King George made it clear that you gonna run me my ends regardless of the fact. I don't give a damn about none of that. Run me my ends. But at the end of the day, their boys and them, the king's boys and them, were not doing that work. They were getting contract labor / indentured servants / slaves, however you want to put it. Those were the folks that were doing the work. Okay, but in some of the cases, some of these folks that had investment in these lands just didn't keep up with it. They didn't find the necessary people that were willing to work the land, this, that, and the third. So it was just sitting there. So that's how the squatters were able to come in and do their thing and just chill.
Hey, sis. They doing that in Alaska now. The government pay you to go up there. You go up there, put in all your hard work in that environment, then register it with them, and now it's part of the U.S.
I just can't believe people. I really can't. It's just that same ideology, the same Roman ideology of owning stuff, carving it up, and generating profit off of it. Just nothing to do with being in harmony and taking indigenous people's birthright and shit.
You know, that's why the Apaches were always fighting. They did the same in the West.
Exactly. Absolutely. Shout out to esotericism and blog talk. You saying that I'm when I use run me my ends, I sound like I'm from your set. Yeah, you know that term, run me my ends. All right. So here we go. All right, where did we go? Interlopers and transpassers, unpoliced squatters and crackers. I think I read this. Let me see. Yeah, because the sheriff had put them out. All right. Slang tends to enter the vocabulary well after conditions it describes has existed, and so the presence of squatters predated the word itself. In Pennsylvania, as early as 1740, colonial officials issued stern proclamation to warn off illegitimate residents who were settling on the western land of wealthy proprietors. 20 years later, with little success in curbing their invasion, courts made the more egregious form of trespassing a capital crime. Now, ain't that a bitch? They done came over and stole the indigenous people's shit, or claim they negotiated with some chief on behalf of somebody else. I don't give a fuck who you negotiated with, nigga. That land was from generation to generation through the women. So how the fuck a man gonna give you something that was never in his goddamn hands in the first place? All of you fuckers were out of order. Indigenous men that hooked up with that fuckery, and of course the Europeans. So now you pissed because you didn't set up and brought the poor white folks. You started with them, brought them over here on contracts or let them up out of jail, whatever the case may be, to work the land, to still keep them in the same fucked up poverty conditions. So they runs away from their little indentured servant contracts or prison sentences and go live in the woods and the swamps. And you got the fucking nerve to say they was stealing from you? They was squatting when you're the big squatters of the world. Not just America, the fucking world. Everywhere the Romans go is some fucking dramatization. With your stealing ass. You're a fucking scavenger. So I'm not impressed with none of that shit. None of it. Fuck who you doing it on behalf of. Who the fuck your God is. I give no fucks. You are a scavenger. You're unnatural to this realm. You're incapable of living in harmony with the planet and her people. So get the fuck out of here. Calling them when you the biggest fucking squatter. All right. Yet even the threat. I'm sorry. Go ahead, brother.
And they the ones that brought them over here.
Yeah. Stinking asses. And so when they was like, you know what, fuck this. I was starving over in Europe. Then you go gather me up, bring me over here. Well, if you come over here, you know, you'll get a work contract, this, that, and the third. You'll be able to eat this, that, and the third. And they worked me to half fucking death. First of all, most of my people didn't survive the trip. We were so goddamn sick, most of us died. We get here, still didn't have a lot to eat. Get up under these contracts, these work contracts that we could never get out from. You work us to fucking death. So we said, fuck it, we'd rather run away and go live up in them swamps. But they're the ones in the wrong. Get the fuck out of here. So I don't give a damn who it is. It's some bullshit. It's against nature. All right. Yet, even the threat of the gallows did not stop the flow of migrants across the Susquehanna down the Ohio and as far south as North Carolina and Georgia. British military officers were the first to record their impressions of the irrepressible class of humanity. As early as the 1750s, they were called the scum of nature and vermin. They had no means of support except theft and license. Ain't that a bitch? They thieving?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but it's okay for you to fucking thieve because you doing it on behalf of your fucking God.
Of course.
It's okay to put women and children in bondage because your God told you as a man you have dominion over everything. Get the fuck out of here. The military damned them, but also used them. The motley caravan of settlers that gathered around encampments such as Fort Pitt, the future of Pittsburgh, All right, so now y'all know where Pittsburgh name came from. Came from the name Fort Pitt. At the fork of the Ohio, Allegheny and Monongahela rivers served a buffer zone between the established colonial settlements along the Atlantic and native tribes of the interior. A semi-criminal class of men whose women were dismissed as harlots by the soldiers. They trailed in the army's wake as camp followers, sometimes in the guise of traders, other times as whole families. Colonial commanders such as Swiss-born Colonial Harry Bequet in Pennsylvania treated them as all expendable troublemakers, but occasionally employed them in attacking and killing so-called savages. Like the vagrants rounded up in England to fight foreign wars, these colonial outcasts had no lasting social value. All right, so did y'all, oh really? Okay, Hope, you live in Pittsburgh off of that river? Wow, so now you know, sis. Did y'all catch that? Now, they done sat up here and talked about these folks like a dog. They vermins, they this, that, and the other, but y'all can round them up. You can round up the poor to fight your funky ass wars. So I say, what has changed till today? Who fights wars around the world?
And ain't it a bunch of women that hang around military bases?
Yeah, trying to catch them because you know they got them good military benefits. Exactly. Exactly. No, ain't nothing changed. No, ain't nothing changed. Like I told y'all when we read that charter, that Georgia charter, and King Charles, the black boy, said basically him his motherfucking ends. They don't care about none of that. Because for these commerce. But in the sad part about it, it's commerce at the expense of the indigenous folks, the indigenous women and children, and their offspring and future generation. It's off of indigenous people across the planet, off of their backs, that the Roman Empire has been motherfucking chilling and kicking it. All right. Those troublemaker wars. All right. In 1759, Bequet argued that the only hope for improving the colonial frontier was through the regular pruning. For him, war was a positive good when it killed. See, I'm finna read this, then I'm finna vent again. Sorry, y'all. God damn it, shit, fuck. This the same shit. We keep telling y'all. It's the same shit. They ain't remixed the goddamn thing. It's the same script. For him, war was a positive good when it killed off the vermin and weeded out the rubbish. They were no better than savages, he wrote. Their children brought up in the woods like brutes, without any notion of religion or government. Nothing man could devise improve the breed. So, in other words, he's saying that they use war as another thing. Yeah, we let the poor fight the war because they're indispensable. And by the way, that's the thing to wipe their asses out, to get them off our books. And so people are not making these connections, that nothing has changed.
You know, It sounds like Inky and Lil. It's just, I mean, it just keeps popping in my head as you're reading that, because they were using the people that they made to fight each other. And now we have the armies, or our people, the savages, as they call us, be put on the front lines to die. But we're the man, and they're the savages that they're talking about in that book now that has taken over. It's weird.
And
No, it's actually
and
the
I guess
savages.
go ahead,
The
Brother Sean.
savages they talking about now is the
Yeah, I know.
redneck and the crackers, the sovereign movement people, you know.
Yep.
All these crackers off in the backwoods of Georgia, Texas, or wherever with all these guns, all that training.
Exactly.
They the ones ready to take down the corporation.
Yep.
That's right.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's the same story.
Yep.
It really is. And
It really is.
I'm willing to bet that those particular folks today, it's probably their bloodline. That was the squatters back up in the day. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's probably the same bloodline.
The moonshine runners.
Exactly. It's the same bloodline. Like, fuck y'all.
Swamp people.
Yep.
Eating crocodilators.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. Yep. Purple Pill goes, war is the most efficient method of changing society, civilization. Absolutely, Purple. All folks have to do is go back and look at those wars and do just a little bit of research, and you'll see huge social, societal changes that happen because of those wars. I call it part of social engineering, to be honest. It's part of social engineering, because just like when we were doing the Black Nobility series, and Brother Lee Cummings in his book said that World War II was also used to wipe out the last of those European melanated kingdoms, or actually just the kingdoms around the world, to usher in the Caucasian kingdoms. So, yeah, very good point. All right. Yes, very good point, esotericism. You can change more things in 5 years of war than you can in 50 years of peace. Absolutely. So that's why each one of those, what they're calling world wars, were planned out. All of them were planned out. Now, the indigenous wars, that's a different story. That was them trying to take over the territories, and indigenous people was like, I don't give a fuck who you claim you made an arrangement with. We ain't with that. Okay, but those world wars were planned to start writing the narrative that they are calling as history today, and change the landscape and social engineer the way they wanted the shit to be. So excellent point, esotericism and Purple Pill. Very, very good point. Purple Pill said, I call it culture creation as opposed to social engineering. I can rock with that too. Absolutely. Culture creation. Absolutely. All right. Here we go. Squatter or squat carried a range of disreputable meaning. The term suggesting squashing, flattening out, or beating down, it conjured images of scattering, spinning outward, spilling people across the land. Okay, that's interesting. Those who reoccurred to the term revived the older vulgar slur of human waste, as in squatterling, damn, a soft turd. But the late 18th century, in the time of the influential buffoon, squatting was uniformly associated with lesser people, such as the Hottentots, who reportedly convened their political meeting while squatting on the ground. During the 7 Year War, okay, remember when we were reading on the French Indian War and they talked about the 7 Year War, they were saying that most people around the world felt that the 7 Year War was a world war, but over in the Americas they were calling it a 7 Year War. But anyway, British forces used the tactic of squatting down and hiding when fighting Native Americans, especially imitating their foes' ambushes. Let's overlook the obvious. Squatting, sitting down, was the exact opposite of standing, which as a noun convened the British legal principle of securing territory rights to the land. The word right came from standing erect. One's legal standing meant everything in civilized society. Crackers first appeared in the records of British officials in the 1760s and described a population with nearly identical traits. In a letter to Lord Dartmouth, one colonial British officer explained that the people called crackers were great boasters, a lawless set of rascals on the frontiers of Virginia, Maryland, the Carolinas, and Georgia, who often changed their place of abode. As backcountries, banditti, villains, and horse thieves, they were dismissed as idle stragglers and a set of vagabonds, often worse than the Indians. These motherfuckers off the hook. How you gonna call the Indians vagabonds, goddammit, on their own shit? Mm-mm. The Roman Empire, the motherfucker. If folks can't figure out who the quote devils and demons are, if you want to use that term, I can't help you. All right. By the time of the Revolution, their criminal ways had turned them into ruthless Indian fighters. All right, so did y'all catch that? So at first they were saying, yeah, y'all ain't no good for nothing, this, that, and the other. Y'all just like them damn Indians. And by the time the revolutionary, their criminal ways had turned them into ruthless Indian fighters. Now, why would they turn them into ruthless Indian fighters? Why would they go from not giving a damn what the Indian folk are doing, because they, squatting on some land, chilling. Matter of fact, she said that where they squatted, they a lot of times were in close proximity to the enemies. So what changed? Now all of a sudden they became ruthless Indian fighters. Okay. In one eyewitness account from the Carolina backcountry, a cracker bruiser wrestled his Cherokee foe to the ground, gouged out his eyes, scalped his victim alive, and then dashed his skull with the butt of a gun. Overkill was their code of justice. So I'm going to pause. Brother Sean, did you have something to say? Because I know why they did what they did, why they turned. Go ahead.
Sound like the Klan to me. But it also sounds like what their ancestors did. You learn how to survive from the indigenous people, then you get rid of them.
Right.
So, I mean, that worked out for them.
Exactly.
And then once they realized that they were successfully fighting in those environments, then they threw them a bone.
Exactly.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, because I'm thinking too that they struck a deal with Europe. Be like, you know what? If you motherfuckers want some land, if you want to be on the come up, you got to take them Indians out. So I believe that's what turned the quote quote squatters or vagabonds, or which were really the Caucasian folks that came over to the Americas on these indentured servant contracts that ran away. I believe that's what turned them against the Indians, because they had cut a deal to get some of that land or get some of that wealth that Europe had promised them.
Yeah, but a lot of them was criminals and stuff to begin with.
True, because they got out of prison, they prison sentence. True. Very well true.
You know, they're the ones that scalping stuff. They used to say the Indians started that stuff. Remember?
Yeah, because weren't they getting paid for them scalps?
Yeah. For Indian scalps.
Yeah, for Indian scalps. So the white settlers or the slave or crackers or squatters, whatever, they're the ones who started taking scalps. First ones.
Yep. Indeed. All right, so their lineage, as it were. Wait a minute. I think Sis Hope said something in you on chat and YouTube. I thought when. Oh, okay, I go up to Scotty. All them wars were race wars, but that last World War was used to take out the last black European royals and usher in the New World Order with the whites in the seats of power. Absolutely, Scotty Saturn. Sis Hope goes, okay, wow, Netflix, Thieves of the Wood. Okay, I have to look up that movie. Sis Hope goes, I thought when the so-called whites took out the true melanated royals and people in power was the ushering in the New World Order. Yes, that is true. But remember, let's not forget the fact that it was still melanated folk that put the white folks in the seats of power. And I say it was their mulatto relatives. Now, that's me. I don't have motherfucking receipts. So, in other words, it was those two bloodlines always fighting each other for power. So just like I'm not sure if you were with me when we opened up, when I talked about that movie Mary, the Last Queen of Scots, who was King James' mother, that they executed her cousin Elizabeth, executed her because those bloodlines were fighting each other. All right. So yes, they did take out the stewards. They wanted their black asses out of there. Because remember, the stewards reigned over 3 kingdoms. All right. So they politely got their black asses out of there and was like, okay, let me start putting my Caucasian white folks on these thrones. But yes, you're absolutely correct. So that quote quote New World Order really took place in World War II. So that's when you'll notice the change in the crest started changing from the black lion, and then you're going to see the white lion or the yellow lion and all of that bullshit. Okay, so you can tell the change of the melanated power being in the forefront, I'll put it that way, by looking at the crest. All right, and even in that movie, the last Queen Mary, the last Queen of the Scots, she carried that melanated crest of the lions. It was the black lions, okay, the Judah line. All right. So that's what that was about. But make no mistake about it, even the Caucasians that we see today, they tie back to a melanated bloodline. But now the Caucasians are just the face of that same kingdom. Okay, but it was infighting with that kingdom. And some may even be able to tie the shit back to Inky and Lil motherfuckers stinking asses. Okay, same thing with the fighting of the bloodlines. Okay, and then Phil said, this is what the last samurai was all about. Preparation for war. Indeed. All right, y'all. Okay, I think, bear with me if I said this again. And stop me, Brother Shine or Sis, if I read this. Their lineage, as it were, could be traced back to North Carolina and before the Virginians rejects and renegades. And Anglican minister Charles Wood Mason, who traveled for 6 years in the Carolina wilderness in the 1760s, offered the most damning portrait of the lazy, litigious, drunken, and whoring men and women whom he adjudged the poorest excuse for British settler he had ever met. The Virginia crackers he encountered were foolish enough as to argue over a turd. The women were sluttish by nature, known to pull their clothes tightly around their breasts and hips so as to emphasize their shape. Irreligious men and women engaged in drunken orgies rather than listen to the clergyman's dull sermons. All in all, crackers were as indolent and immoral as their fellow squatters to the north. Okay, so pretty much all the crackers pretty much fit in the same boat as squatters. The origin of cracker is no less curious than squatter. The cracking trade of the 1760s were described as noisy braggarts prone to lying and vulgarity. One could also crack a jest and crude Englishmen cracked wind. They saying fart, whatever. Firecrackers gave off a stench and were loud and disruptive as they snapped, crackled, and popped. A louse cracker referred to the lice-ridden, slovenly, nasty fella. Damn, they just knew how to talk about people like a damn dog. Another significant linguistic connection to the popular term was the adjective crack brain, which denoted a crazy person and was the English slang for a fool or idle head. Idleness in mind and body was a defining trait. In one of the most widely read 16th century tracts on husbandry, Thomas Tusser offered the qualifying verse: 2 good haymakers worth 20 crackers. Damn. As the embodiment of waste people, they whittled away time, producing only bluster and nonsense. Americans were aggressive. Their delight in cruelty meant they were not cantankerous, but dangerous. As lawless rascals of the frontier, they had a lean and mean physique, like an inferior animal. Backwoods traders were easily compared to a rascal herd of deer. Rascal was yet another synonym for trash. Oh, damn. So you mean the little rascals was little trash? That's what y'all trying to say? Well, damn. But you know what? Now that we think about it, you know how the mud flood community say that a lot of orphans were brought over from Europe as children. The orphan children were brought over here and were made to work clearing up land, debris off the land from the wars, and helping burying folks. Now that I think about shit, that kind of make me think of how raggedy the Little Rascals look. But anyway, I know that Little Rascals, I think, was back in the Depression days. But anyway, go ahead, sis.
You know, the way they describe them, it's just one step up from the Neanderthal. The what you call that dude? Sasquatch. They were just unkept, and they have on AT&T.net or currently whatever. They have the 1920s. Some of the hygiene they passed on, tips. They said they don't recommend those anymore. So that reminds me about the one that got away when Inky was making man, and they were not intelligent, and all they did was have sex and have fun. So that's who they sound like. And maybe as time went on, they never did get intelligent. And that's what they sound like they did right there in that era in the 1760s or whatever it was. It's really interesting how they describe them, just like Sasquatch, just a little bit higher than a wild beast.
And in the Squatter's defense, Scotty Sattermo's Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn, Mark Twain's Life on the Mississippi. Yes, Scotty, I'm actually trying to get that book. I am waiting for the shit for somebody to sell that motherfucking collection. So yeah, I'm gonna have something on that once I'm able to get a hold to that entire volume on Life on the Mississippi. But in the Squatters' motherfucking defense, I'm not even gonna put that on them that they were so dumb, this, that, and the third, because I'm basing it on who the fuck is saying this, who are enslavers. So I'm not even gonna put that on them. That they were so unintelligent, this, that, and other. It's not unintelligent if I don't want you to use me as a fucking slave. Unintelligence to me is cooperating with your monk ass. So no, I'm not gonna even put that on the squatters. Fuck no. The squatters were right. Fuck you. I'm not doing none of that. You done brought my white ass over here. I barely fucking survived. So yeah, I'ma chill in these swamps with these other people you calling savages. Fuck you. So to me, they weren't dumb. So they can go on with that bullshit. That's propaganda for them to justify for their fucked up behavior.
Well, I'm talking about the hygiene and not bathing and all that, rough stuff.
Well, I mean, that's different. That's different. I'm not gonna say the unintelligence. Now, watching your ass, that's a different story. Now if we wanna go that route, we have to put it on the Moors, motherfucking stinking asses, because the Moors are the Caucasians' God. Let's be clear. The Moors are the Caucasians' God. Because the Moors went and got them out of the conditions of living underground and all that bullshit and civilized them. So now if they washed their motherfucking ass when they came to the Americas, Moors, that's your fucking fault. Them your children. That would be like if I have a child and they not washing their ass, they'd be like, what the fuck wrong with you? You didn't teach your children how to wash their motherfucking ass? So I still say in their defense, that was the Moors' responsibility. They are the Moors' responsibility.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. In 1798, Dr. Benjamin Rush, a signer of the Declaration of Independence, wrote that Pennsylvania squatters had adopted the strongest tincture of the manners of Indians, particularly in their violent fits of labor, succeeded by long intervals of rest. Yeah, they weren't dumb at all, as far as I'm concerned. The squatters got up on game and was like, fuck you, I'm out of here. All right, perhaps their southern twin abided by the same indistinctive rhythms, but the further south one went, the more the landless indulged themselves in long periods of sloth. Rush described his state as sieve, leaking southbound squatters. Pennsylvania retained the hardier poor, those willing to plow the stubborn soil, whereas the truly indolent ended up in Virginia, North Carolina, and Georgia. In Rush's regional sketch, squatters from the northern states seem to turn into crackers. You know, they a trip. Seem to turn into crackers as soon as they cross into the southern backcountry, which makes sense. So in other words, they like, nah, fuck all that. You up here working the shit out of us. We're literally dying. We still don't own nothing. This is truly slavery. So when they hit them southern, the South, they got up on knowing how to run to them backwoods and live off the land. Okay, so yeah, that makes perfect sense. Nah, they wasn't dumb. Like, fuck this. All right. The persistence of the squatters and crackers allowed us to understand how much more limited society mobility was along the frontier than Loving leg in has it. In the Northwest, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, and Wisconsin territories, the sprawling Upper South, Kentucky, Tennessee, Missouri, and Arkansas territories, and Florida, East and West, and she said Florida's East and West, classes formed in a predictable manner. Speculators and large farmers, a mix of absentee land investors and land-owning gentry, had the most power and political influence, and usually had a clear advantage in determining how the land was parceled out. The middling landowners had personal or political connection to the large landowning elite. In the new trans-Appalachian towns such as Lexington, Kentucky, dubbed the Athens of the West, with the addition of roads came commercial growth between 1815 and 1827, so that a new merchant middle class took root. Such towns as Lexington also supported small farmers who had less security in retaining their land, given the fluctuations in the market, while artisans and the meaner sort hung about the town. Okay, so now you see, once again, how this shit was set up from the beginning and how it's still playing out. Because basically, let's go to farming. I read the article a couple of weeks ago about how, you know, they're admitting that millions of acres were taken from quote, quote, black farmers. Same difference, because the land in the Americas, first of all, is still bundled up in a trust that the Vatican holds, okay, because that's why everybody still has to pay taxes on the land, because they really don't own the land, but we do know that the Vatican fucking don't own it. But anyhow, my point being, the folks that still own the large portions of the land are these wealthy folks whose bloodline ties back to the kings and them boys in them. So the shit still It's the same today. Where most of the farmers, if you look it up, most of the farmers that are producing the mass amount of food are owned by multimillionaires. And the small farmers are the ones struggling to keep it going, to make a living, and where they have to take out all of these loans that they can't pay back, and then they wind up losing their particular land. So it's the same shit over and over again. Now, what I find interesting, based on this book, is that I don't see them talking about too much, or see this author talking about too much, where the indigenous folks were teaching the pilgrims how to fucking farm. I ain't seen her mention that goddamn yet. Actually, in the opposite. The Europeans were struggling on how to grow food and stuff over here, because it was a different landscape. Matter of fact, the farming that's still used today, typically I call it industrial farming, is still that European shit, which strips the land from nutrients, the way they plant, okay, versus the way the indigenous plant. It's the opposite, because the indigenous plant in harmony with the land, okay? All right, so basically this is the same shit, the same system. All right, here we go. The persistence of the squatter and cracker allow us to understand how much more limited social mobility was along the frontier than the loving legend has it. In the Northwest, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, and Wisconsin territories. Okay, I think I just went over that. Okay, we talked about the land speculators in it partially now. All right, the middling landowners had personal or political connections to the large landowning elite. In the new Trans-Appalachian towns, such as Lexington, Kentucky, dubbed as Athens of the West. All right, so I already talked about that. With the flood of the new settlers, squatters made their presence known, sometimes identified as families, at other times as single men. They were viewed as a distant and troublesome class. In the Northwest Territory, they were dismissed as unproductive old soldiers, rubbish that needed to be cleared away before a healthy commercial economy could be established. President Jefferson termed them intruders on public land. Some Indians found substance as hired laborers. All of them existed on the margins of the commercial marketplace. All right, so I'm going to pause again and just say, the kind of reminds me of today of the homelessness that's happening around the Americas. And as gentrification is going on in these cities across the Americas, they used to be ghettos. People are being displaced, and where the homeless used to hang out at, they're now trying to clear them out. Okay, so kind of puts me in the same mindset. So they want to clear out the quote unproductive, undesirables for the purpose of getting the commerce benefits or the profits from that particular area. So same thing, nothing's changed whatsoever. I'm sorry, go ahead, sis.
They're having a battle in this political stuff about redlining. And I think it's, what's her name, Warren, talking about Bloomberg. It was saying it was because redlining is because they gave credit to minorities in 2008, and that's what caused the collapse of the commerce, the housing. But when I was a kid, redlining was that if you're a certain ethnic group, like melanated, you can't buy in a certain area because that was set for the other Europeans and things. Now, what they're doing to that 2008 stuff, as far as the credit was concerned, to get the land from the people.
Absolutely.
It was to get the land from the people, to give them these crazy balloon variable loans so that, they'd be suckered into those things at a low interest rate. And they didn't tell them that they have to refinance in 5 years and get another lender. And so the interest rate went so high that they just lost their homes. That's what's wrong with California. They offer these people 2 and 3% loans, and variable loans, not a fixed loan, but a variable loan.
Right.
A lot of people don't know what variable and fixed means.
Right.
So they don't know that because they took it. I had a lady when I wanted to in 2008 when I was thinking about refinancing my house, and she wanted me to take a variable loan. And I says, does that mean I have to refinance and requalify? She said, yes. I said, well, I'm not taking that loan. And so she hung up on me. She actually hung up on me. So they were targeting minorities, not that they were giving you that loan to get, they were targeting them so that you take that loan, and then in the end you lose your home, and then these investors and stuff would come and buy up your land. That's what they were doing it for.
Absolutely, sis. Absolutely. And purple goes, what is another esoteric term for credit? And the left goes, what is it? Faith. Yeah, that is faith. Faith. Absolutely right, because you got to have a lot of faith to believe in that credit shit.
Yeah, you really do.
Yeah, but no, that 2008 crash.
But that started the homeless problem. That's the start.
Yeah, it really got out of control then. But I agree with you, sis.
Now we have the drugs involved. Then we have the military and these the mental problems of the people because they cut off their Prozacs and all that kind of stuff after, getting them crazy in their heads. Then they cut that off. So California is inundated not only with druggies, but people who did the mortgages, the mentally unstable, and military. They even got the people they put on the front lines out there.
Absolutely. Because 2008, folks, number one, the economy in the system had collapsed. All right?
All before.
And it was the largest wealth transfer probably in history. The largest wealth transfer. And you're absolutely right, sis. That was a way for folks to snatch up that land, then turn around just like they did. They paid folks who owned slaves for the loss of their income. They turned around and what the fuck did Prezzo motherfucking do? He paid out the debts, paid off the debts of those fallen companies. Okay?
And
all they had to do was motherfucking take that same quote payout. Why not pay off all of those people's motherfucking homes that was in foreclosure?
Exactly. And they didn't want to do that. They wanted the land.
Want to really believe that this system is set up and built for you? Oh, okay then. Okay. You know, if you want to keep thinking that, that's on you. But yes, great point, sis. Very, very good point. Let me see. All right, so it says educated observers feared social disorder, particularly after the financial panic of 1819. So there we go. Back up in 1819, some goddamn financial, crisis. I told y'all the Romanist system tied to the biblical is an unnatural system. It will always collapse. It collapses in cycles. They done told every 7 years that shit is gonna collapse. Every 7 years the shit's gonna reset. They tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
Then they have a big collapse, the depression. You could graph the shit out and you can predict when it's going to collapse. They do it on purpose, but the other esoteric or spiritual side of it is because it's unnatural. It is a system set up to create scarcity. There is no scarcity. Scarcity is created. All right. The financial panic of 1819, when political writers predicted in the West a numerous population in a state of wretchedness. Increasing numbers of poor settlers and uneducated squatters were ripe for treason and spoil. A familiar refrain recalling the language of circulated during Shays' rebellion in 1786. In the wake of the panic, the federal government devised a program of regulated land sales that kept prices high enough to weed out the lower classes. And that's exactly what we see happening today with gentrification. Okay? Pricing out the indigenous folks. The folks that for generation on out lived in those areas that they call the ghettos. When they bring that gentrification in, even if these folks' home is paid off, they can't afford the fucking taxes, the yearly taxes on it, because it's jacked up. All right. So by 1850, in what became a common pattern in New Southwest states, at least 35% of the population owned no real estate. There was no clear path to land and riches among the lower ranks. Tenants could easily be reduced to landless squatters. In the Northwest, land agents courted buyers and actively discouraged tenancy. Federal laws for purchasing land were weighted in favor of wealthier speculators. The landless west of the Appalachian were more likely to pull up stakes and move elsewhere than they were to stay in one place and work their way upward. The ubiquity of squatters across the United States turned them into a powerful political troop. They came to be associated with 5 traits: crude, habitation, boastful vocabulary, distrust of civilization and city folk, and instinctive love of liberty. Maliciousness, and 5, degenerate patterns of breeding. Yet even with such unappealing traits, the squatters also acquired some favorable qualities. The simple backwoodsman welcomed strangers into his cabin. The outrageous storytelling entertained them through the night. Squatters then were more than troublesome, uncouth rascals taking up land they didn't own. This double identity made the squatters a contested figure. By the 1830s and 1840s, he was a symbol of partisan politics, celebrated as the iconic common man who came to epitomize Jackson democracy. All right, so there you go, y'all. 1840s, squatters start getting some recognition from a political perspective. All right. Americans tend to forget that Andrew Jackson. I'm sorry, go ahead, sis.
You know what? I wonder if that word partisan that you just said is the same word they use today for some voters. Partisans. You know they use that word still?
Oh, yeah, they do. Absolutely.
So, are they saying that the partisans just took the land they own?
Or are they saying partisans are the squatters?
Yeah.
The squatters and the crackers.
Yeah. And they get the partisan vote, you know, they call it.
Mm-hmm. They do say that. They do say the partisan vote.
That is weird.
Yep. Makes you have to rethink all of this shit.
What do you mean
Exactly. All right. So, Americans tend to forget that Andrew Jackson was the first Westerner elected president. Tall, lanky, with the raw-boned look of a true backwoodsman. He wore the harsh life of the frontier on his face and literally carried a bullet next to his heart. Ferocious in his resentments, driven to wreak havoc, revenge against his enemies, he often acted without deliberation and justified his behavior as a law unto himself. His controversial reputation made him the target of attacks that painted him as a Tennessee cracker. Well, shit, I didn't know that about Jackson. Did y'all know that? I ain't know that. They was calling blood a cracker. That's interesting. His wife, Rachel's backcountry divorce and her recourse to both cigar and corncob pipe confirmed the couple as Nashville's bumpkins, at least in the eyes of their Eastern detractors. Oh, damn, they was using bumpkins back then. They still using that shit. They're still using that term, trying to put country folks. Sedity folks, and sedity is a southern term. Use that. Anyway, Jackson and his supporters worked on a different image. During 3 successful presidential campaigns, 1824, 1828, 1832, General Jackson was celebrated as Old Hickory, in sharp contrast to the Quetzalcoatl analogy of Americans as carefully cultivated plants. Rising up in a harsh hinterland of what was once the western extension of North Carolina, the Tennessean, with the unbuilding will and rigid style of command, was a perfect match for the tough, dense wood of Indian bowls and hickory switches from which he acquired his nickname. Oh, shit. So this is interesting that Jackson, who is a well-known staunch of the indigenous Indian, was known as like a southern cracker. That's interesting. That's very interesting. It makes a lot more sense. All right, so Jackson, I'm sorry, go ahead. What you say?
It's a partisan area over there. That's the Carolinas, the Tennessees, the Kentuckys. That's probably the partisan vote.
Probably so, sis. That's a good point. That's something we should probably research to see what area are they considering that partisan vote. It's very interesting. All right, so Jackson's personality was a crucial part of his democratic appeal as well as his animosity he provoked. He was the first presidential candidate to be bolstered by a campaign biography. He was not admired for statesman-like qualities, which he lacked in an abundance. In comparison to his highly educated rivals, John Quincy Adams and Henry Clay. His supporters adored his rough edges, his land hunger, and his close identification with the Tennessee wilderness. As a representative of American cracker country, Jackson unquestionably added a new class dimension to the meaning of democracy. So there you have it. Damn, shout out again, Nancy Eisenberg. God damn it, you laid it out. So now that's why she's calling this chapter Andrew Jackson's Cracker Country. Because he was representing the come up of the crackers. Or, you know, exactly, of the white indentured servants. That shit is interesting. Very, very interesting. All right. No shit. I flipped and lost my damn place. To come up with them. Okay. Aboard the meaning of democracy. But the message of the Jackson presidency was not about equality so much as the new style of aggressive expansion. In 1818, General Andrew Jackson invaded Florida without presidential approval. As president, he supported the forced removal of the Cherokee from the southeastern states and willfully ignored the opinion of the Supreme Court. Taking and clearing the land using violent means if necessary and acting without legal authority. Jackson was arguably the political heir of the cracker and squatter. Over decades leading up to Andrew Jackson's election as president, the squatter and cracker gradually became Americans' dominant, poor backcountry breed. Not surprisingly, it was their physical environment that most set them apart.
90 seconds.
In 1810, the ornithologist and poet Alexander Wilson traveled along the Ohio and Mississippi rivers from Pittsburgh to New Orleans, cataloging not only the skybound birds, but also the earth-hugging squatters, whom he found to be an equally curious species. Writing for a Philadelphia magazine, Wilson identified... Oh, damn, y'all, I'm going into overtime. My bad. Those of you in the Blog Talk chat, you have to dial 929-477-3858 to continue, or you can jump on the YouTube stream. You got 1 minute. We're going into overtime. So if you're not on the phone, 929-477-3858, you can just jump on the YouTube stream as well. Okay, my bad. I got into reading. All right, so where the hell was I at? I try to hold my place, y'all. My bad. All right, yeah. So he was going around. He thought the squatters were in themselves. All right, where we go? All right, Wilson identified their grotesque log cabins that scurried the otherwise picturesque wilderness. Weeds surrounded the cabins and huts that the naturalists happened upon. The land showed no sign of toil. Wilson described these questionable homes in a mocking poetry as a cavern de ruin, which frowned a foul cave within, a fouler cave within. The entire family slept on a single bed, or as Wilson put it, were nightly kennel. Kittens crawled into a broken chest. A pig took shelter in a pot, and a leaky roof let in rain. The squatter patriarch stared from beneath his tattered hat, wearing a shirt defiled and torn, his face inlaid with dirt and soot. Damn, y'all, why I get those of you that grew up in the 70s. I don't remember what it was, y'all. But they talked about, they showed like the hillbilly on that cartoon, and exactly how this poet described him. That motherfucking cartoon had that particular,
Beverly Hillbillies the same way.
Beverly Hillbillies was at least a little bit more scaled up, but you're right. The Beverly Hillbilly, what was the main man's name? Was it Jed? Was dressed like that. Yeah. But it was a cartoon that exactly how this poet described it. It was a cartoon that depict the hillbillies like that. Cabin and all, y'all. All right, so for the transplanted Scotsman Wilson, habitat was the measure of a man, marking his capacity for progress or likelihood of decay. If every man's home was his castle, then America's backcountry squatters were worse than peasants. With cruel irony, Wilson termed the squatter cabin as a specimen of the first order of American architecture. It amazed him that such uninspired beings could find anything to boast about, yet they proudly spoke of America as the land of opportunity. There were many like Wilson who placed squatters below the naked savage on the social side. Oh, so y'all trying to say, because you know they call the indigenous Indians the motherfucking savages. So you place the crackers below them. Y'all some motherfuckers. That I just, woo, baby, y'all are a mess.
Wasn't Andrew Jackson's statue the one they tore down and everybody had a fit about it?
I can't remember, sis.
Remember they were tearing down those statues when Obama was president?
Mm.
And it was in the college, I think. It was on a college campus. He was riding his horse.
Yeah,
and so he had
remember.
Yeah, they got really upset about the fact that they almost went to blows over that statue.
Yeah, well.
Because obviously he represents the lower class of man, and they didn't want their representative torn down.
Right. And in the YouTube chat, Sienna D goes, funny too, surname Jackson, hard to find. White's last name Jackson, we're all with it without them. And then John Doe goes, Jacksonville, absolutely. And then Hope goes, they also call those crackers the pioneer people. And then Scotty Saturn goes, Green Acres. Yep, Green Acres represented. Yep, they had a lot of quote crackers there too. The Waltons. Yeah, and the Waltons may have been them Pilgrims. Because they were religious, weren't they? Yeah, Little House on the Prairie. Yep. Somebody, Scotty said Little House on the Prairie. Yep, they put this shit right in our motherfucking faces, didn't they? But let's go back to this Jackson name, because the Jackson name is linked to melanated people. Okay, now, but remember, the squatters took on indigenous people's motherfucking names. So they even took on either took on European surnames or they took on the indigenous people's names, because you're absolutely right that Jackson name ties to indigenous folks. So that's, you talking about a motherfucking kick in the stomach. You a cracker. You got indigenous person's name, but yet you wiped out indigenous people. Andrew Jackson. That's just, woo, child, I can't. I just straight up cannot. Let me go to 713. They've been holding. 713, your line is open.
Hi.
Hi, peace and love.
Call. I've just been listening, and I just stumbled on your show, but I have a thought from listening to what you all the show tonight. I wonder if you've ever heard of this guy. He's a Caucasian, and he calls himself the UFO teacher. His name is Rick Smith. And the reason I ask is because he has a couple of YouTubes, but one of the things that he says is that the reason that the world is in the trouble that they're in is because of the white race. And he says that they were the lowest of the low, the lowest class, and that they made a deal with aliens. And the aliens promised them that if they would, quote, I'm quoting him now, they wanted to mop up the earth of God's children. That's the quote. And that if they would help the aliens do this, then they would place them above others. So, I mean, just listening to, and then there's another guy, Prince Uriel Bay. He's a Moor, and he also has a few, and they both of them talk about the Galactic Federation, but one of the things that Prince Uriel Bay says is that there were Moors on Mars. And so I just wonder if these were the aliens that made the deal with this white group, with the Caucasian. I mean, that's just something to think about.
Right.
Listening to all of this is just very, very interesting.
Yeah, indeed. And I think Rick Smith, didn't he write a book, The Moor, the Masons? I cannot think of the name because I actually have the book because he's an author. Yeah, if I remember correctly. I think he's an author. Yeah, and he wrote a book. And I semi-agree with what he's saying. And yes, he does have YouTube videos on YouTube. You can definitely do a YouTube search and you can find videos of him breaking it down. I don't agree with him that the whites cut a deal with the aliens just because of the fact they did not have that type of power. They were put into power. So I think it's the alien race or races that decided to come to the planet and cipher and run things, and white folks are just a part of the particular narrative and scheme.
Right. You know, the book of Isaiah speaks of a deal that was cut. Yeah, I think it's in the 33rd chapter. They agreed to an alien race to get their wealth and their power. It does say it in the book of Isaiah. So probably that's where he got that from.
I see what you're saying. That makes sense. Yes, thank you, Sis Cheryl. Peace and love, Sis Cheryl. It's the Moor, the Masons, and the alien. Absolutely. Thank you, Sis Cheryl. I actually have that book. I haven't read it all the way, by author Rick Smith.
Okay, yeah, that just crossed my mind.
Well, thank you for that.
Think about how low they are, but yes, I'm telling everybody I know about your show. I'm just really enjoying it and learning so much. So I just appreciate you all putting it out there.
Oh, well, thank you so much, sis, and peace and love to you, and thank you for
One more
calling
thing.
in. Sure
I think
thing.
you're talking about Little Abner, the cartoon.
Oh,
Little
okay.
Abner.
I just remember that hillbilly in that cartoon chewing on the straw from a broom. If I'm not mistaken, well, it wasn't from a broom. Just chewing on the straw. Didn't have on no shoes. Was
Right.
dusty, like somebody said in the chat room. Dusty as the MF. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna go back and continue listening, but
Okay.
thought I'd add that little 2 cent in.
Okay. Thank you, sis, and peace and love.
Thank you. Peace and love.
All right.
That's he didn't have any clothes on, did he?
He had on his breeches with the rope around it. They was brown, tattered at the bottom, raggedy shirt with the hat, but he was dustied in the MF. I remember that cartoon vividly.
Oh, that's funny.
But that's interesting that sis brought up that whole connection of the aliens, because that's why I keep trying to bring back to the whole Anunnaki thing and them doing all of that genetic experimenting and being on Mars and shit, because supposedly Mars was a transfer station. They would stop there for fuel, and they did have a little breeding program there, this, that, and the third. So all of it ties in, family. All of it ties in. I'm sorry, go ahead,
If the
sis.
Moors were on Mars, then they're the EGGs. Because they always say they're the Egyptians, they're the this, they claim all that stuff. They're the fallen ones.
But the GGs didn't have the power, though. Because the GGs were in slavery, right?
Look at their creed, what are them things?
The crest.
100 page, whatever they call it thing. They say they're the fallen ones. They're the angels of light. They are the fallen ones, the sons of Lucifer. That's what they say.
And that's all good. People are free to be whomever they, and they want to be. And I have no judgment on that. For real. I'm just seeing what the ancient texts were saying, that the Agigis were the slaves of the Anunnaki. They weren't the ones in power. Now, when they did come to Earth, whatever, they had the opportunity to blend in and marry some of the indigenous women of the planet, but they were not the ones in power. But interestingly enough, y'all remember that motherfucking cartoon Marvin the Martian? Remember that? It was dark. Don't y'all remember the little motherfucking Martian that was short, that was black with the helmet on? I know y'all remember that cartoon. Exactly. From the motherfucking Flintstones. So I'm gonna let y'all noodle on that. Who do the Flintstones them represent?
No, that's Gazoo on the Flintstones. Marvin the Martian.
Where Marvin?
Bugs Bunny.
Okay, yeah, him and Bugs Bunny. Bugs Bunny a motherfucking trip. Yeah. Right. So they showed you right there that the Martians had a melanated black hue. They showed you that.
And
but
the Roman helmet.
With the Roman helmet, absolutely.
A sword, like a Roman, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he had the little didn't he have the little motherfucking vibration gun? See, now that we know this shit, we starting to remember that shit. They put all this shit right up in our face. Yeah, zapping the fuck out of people with high vibration. Yeah, and somebody said
his X-15 nuclear modulator missile. He was always talking about that too.
Yep. And his Roman get up, and Scotty goes, yes, and he had the military regalia that was Looney Tunes. Show did. So they was showing our asses right in plain sight, like they showed with the Flintstones in them. That was the come up of the Caucasian race. That's what the motherfucking Flintstone cartoon was about. Which I actually like the Flintstone cartoon. But that's what that fucking cartoon was about. It was showing you how the Caucasians coming out of the Caucasus Mountains, turning themselves into a middle class, quote, quote, lifestyle, becoming, quote, quote, civilized. So yeah, they put all this shit right up in our faces.
Yeah, Fred and Barney had the help from the Green Martian.
Yeah, what was his name? Kazoo? Yeah.
The great Kazoo.
Exactly. So cartoons spitting the truth. I've always said that though. Cartoons spit the truth. Put it right in our faces since we a little. And don't think that they're doing that by accident, on purpose. Some of it, yes, is definitely programming, but the other part, they want to see as beings that the ones that are eternal beings who remember this shit. So they want to say, yeah, I'm gonna put this in these fuckers' face. I'm gonna put this in these crystalline beings' face. I want to see who fucking remembers. Who's waking up? Who's remembering this shit? Yeah, absolutely.
It's that fluoride and stuff they put in our stuff to make us sleep.
Yeah, but now ain't none of that shit working. Ain't none of it working. So they gotta keep coming with the psyops and this group against that group, but it don't fucking matter, because I done took and told y'all. Mother Earth has the last fucking say. And if she wanna wipe out every crevice on her, that is her right to do. So everybody being put on notice. You either get in line or get the fuck on. As those other boditary planets keep showing up in the sky, the doggone plasma pulsating in the fucking sky.
Yeah, it is.
So all of this being off the hook. Yeah.
Pink clouds.
Yeah, pink clouds, purple some days, blood orange, red. You just be like, do your thing, mama, do your motherfucking thing. That's all I can say. So, all right, here we go. For transplanted Scotsman Wilson, right, and remember, shout out again to Brother Lee Cummings on his series, The Negro Question. Part 6 and Part 4 were what we used when we did the... Oh, yeah, we've been in overtime. Yeah, so if they try to get in on the phone, they didn't miss that little opportunity. So they have to jump on YouTube. But it's only the chat at this point. But yeah, we're in overtime. So in that series, Black Nobility, we use as the source of reference the Negro Question by Lee Cummings. We use Part 6, which is the 13 Black colonies, and then Part 4. But in one of those, he talked about that Wilson surname, which tied back to King William. So that surname, who was melanated, William was melanated, and that Wilson surname is still a melanated surname. So back to, I think that was Sis Hope in the YouTube chat that talked about that Jackson surname. Sometimes it's hard for us as melanated people to know if those surnames were European and they married into the indigenous people's bloodline in the Americas, and or if they were derived out of the indigenous tribes. Because that Wilson name, you're going to find a lot of melanated people with that motherfucking name. But that name does tie back to Europe.
You know, I had a Jackson that entered into our family, and he had 6 digits. And he was a tall dude, always laughing, had a good time. But, you know, they say that the 6 digits are giants, right?
So he has 6 fingers when you say digits, right? Yeah, since we got to break that down for the millennial. Us old heads motherfucking know what that means. But the millennials ain't gonna know what that means. So 6 fingers, basically.
Right, yeah. And, you know, the next to the little finger, there was that little digit sticking there. And most of the aliens or the giants have the 6 digits. And they have Halle Berry. She has it on her toe, they said. They took a picture of her.
They say that 6 digit is tied back to the fallen angels and all that bullshit. The Nephilim. That's what I'm trying to say. The Nephilim. So you're saying one of the Jacksons? One of the Jacksons? What else was he mixed with?
He wasn't mixed. He just had that digit.
Oh, okay.
I barely remember him, you know, because I was a kid, but my cousin had married him, and he had 6 digits. And I used to look at his hand, you know, like, what is he doing with that?
Right.
You know, I'm just a curious kid.
Right.
And so as I learned about the giants and the fallens and Nephilims, and I know they had that 6 digits.
Right. And Sis Cheryl goes, son of William is Wilson. Absolutely. Ooh, Sis Cheryl, no you didn't. Sis Cheryl said Halle Berry and Oprah with the 6 digits. Well, damn. Yeah, that's what Sis Cheryl said.
That's why she's so on top.
Well, we know all back to somebody's bloodline. All of them. All right.
Wow.
So, yeah, ain't it interesting? All right. So,
really interesting right there.
Yeah. I hadn't heard that in a minute with the 6 digits. That's why I kind of laugh. I'm like, sis, tell them what it means, because the youngest gonna be like, what are they old asses talking about? So yeah, baby, when you hear somebody say, yeah, such and so got six digits running their family, that's what they talking about. You can see the motherfucking nub of where they have 6 fingers and 6 toes.
Yep.
It could be one or the other. It don't have to be both. Yeah, some people, I've known some people that had 6 toes too. Huh?
He was really strange. He was a cousin-in-law of mine, because that was my cousin's husband that she married. His name was Jackson.
Right. But in the motherfucking Jackson's defense, don't be putting that on that name. That's why I said, what the fuck was he also mixed with? Goddamn. Shit. You ain't finna put that on all of the Jacksons. I got you, Jackson. Fuck that. You ain't finna put that on all on the Jacksons. Goddamn. I don't know what the fuck else he was mixed with. Shit. So, all right. So here we go. For the now you cool. For the transplanted Scotsman Wilson, habitat was the measure of a man marking his capacity for progress or likelihood of decay. If every man's home was his castle, then America's backcountry squatters were worse than peasants. With cruel irony, Wilson termed the squatter's cabin as a specimen of the first order of American architecture. It amazed him that such unexpired beings could find anything to boast about, yet they proudly spoke of America as the land of opportunity. Okay, and so they said they were beneath the savage on the social scales. At least the American Indian Indians belong in the woods. The poor squatters' backcountry still carried the association of a rubbish heap. There was no real social ladder emerging in the Western Territory, no solid foundation for mobility under construction there, not much rising from the bottomless basements that ooze human refuse. From the foothills of the Appalachians into the banks of the Ohio and Mississippi rivers, the nation leaned backwards. The squatter's was frozen in time. His primitive hut represented his underclass age. The distance between the town and the backwoods was measured in more than miles. It had an evolutionary character, forming what some at the time recognized as an impassable gulf between classes. The educated routinely wrote in disbelief that such people shared their country. In 1817, for example, Thomas Jefferson's granddaughter, Cornelia Randolph, wrote to her younger sister about a trip with their grandfather to the Natural Bridge, a property that Jefferson owned 90 miles west of Monticello. Here, she encountered members of that half-civilized race who lived beyond the ridge. The children she met were barely covered by their scantily shifts and shirts, while one man strutted around before them with his hairy breast exposed. In the large, unruly family, she noted with disapproval there were no more than 2 or 3 pairs of shoes. She was especially surprised by the crude familiarity of their speech. Oblivious to social forms, they conversed with the ex-president as though he was some lost family member. As a proud member of Virginia gentry, Cornelia was convinced that she towered above the unwashed squatters. To her further chagrin, she was astounded that the poor family exhibited not the least sense of shame over their pathetic conditions. Class made its most transparent appearance by way of such contrast. We can read volumes into the scorn expressed by the educated onlookers as he or she sized up the uncouth figures who roamed the back country. The need to make them into a new breed focused on more than just crude living conditions, however. The backwoodsman and cracker had a tail gait that accompanied his distinctive physique. While traveling in the Trans-Appalachian West in 1830, a city adventurer drily observed his bed companion for the night. Lantern-jawed, double-jointed backwoodsman, measuring some 7 feet 1 in his stocking feet. Well, damn, he was tall if he was 7 feet.
I'm talking about Neanderthal.
Yeah, he was 7 feet 1. 7 feet 1. A typical alligator hunter in southern Illinois bore a similar physique. Gaunt, long-limbed, lantern-jawed Jonathan. Jonathan simply meant fellow, here being a common appellation for the generic American. You know what, now that I remember, wasn't Jethro? Shit, I gotta go back to the Beverly Hillbillies. And that's my shit, y'all. I still watch the fucking Beverly Hillbillies. I don't give a damn what nobody say. Yeah. Jed and Jethro were tall.
Yeah, they were. That's what I was saying. They sound like they're the Neanderthal type. A little step down from, what they call it? Sasquatch.
Yeah, they were tall. That's interesting. All right, so the woman had the same protruding jaw and swarthy. Oh, fuck. Swarthy, I mean, she was black. We know what the fuck swarthy means. The cracker woman had the same protruding jaw and swarthy complexion and were often as not toothless. So I guess that sister had her motherfucking teeth, is what she's trying to say. That's interesting. Women and children were important symbols of civilization or absence of it. Officers stationed in Florida in the 1830s identified ye cracker girls as brutes, with manners no better than sailors and often seen smoking pipe, chewing and spitting tobacco, and cursing. Seeing their slipshod dress, dirty feet. Exactly. I ain't gonna say my granny's feet was dirty now. I'll cuss you out over that. Granny on the Beverly Hillbillies. Yeah. But Granny's feet wasn't dirty on the Beverly Hillbillies either. Ropey hair and unwashed face. One lieutenant from the Northeast dismissed them all as no better than prostitutes. In his words, every one of the crackers class was a swearing, lazy, idle slut. Okay, so... All right. Okay, I ain't hear you say nothing about them selling their body, so... All right, well, whatever. The backwoods personality could be found as far north as Maine, as far south as Florida, and across the Northwest and Southwest territories. They acquired localized names. All right, there we go, family. She said it. I'm gonna read that shit again. The backwoods personality could be found as far north as Maine, as far south as Florida, and across the Northwest and Southwest territories. They acquired localized names. All right, so they took on the indigenous folks' names. All right, so when you see white folks with that Wilson, Jackson, Johnson, those are indigenous names. They took on the indigenous people's names, whether that be from Europe or over in the Americas, such as Mississippi Screamers for their cracker style, Indian War whoop or love of squealing, Kentucky Corn Crackers for their poor diet of cracked corn, and Indiana Hoosiers for the poor in that state. Hoosier is a word no linguistic scholar can define with any precision. Even so, the class descriptor was the same. A Hoosier man ran off at the mouth. Oh shit, Indiana! Y'all motherfuckers' feelings finna get hurt. Here's the origins of that Hoosier name. Woo, girl, spill the tea, Miss Nancy. So, a Hoosier man ran off at the mouth, lied, boasted, and remained ready to harm anyone who insulted his ugly wife. Well, shit, he was supposed to. You don't be talking about nobody's wife and they face calling them ugly. That is fighting words. But anyway, they were as prone to a down and dirty fight as any Southern cracker. Hoosier gals were no more refined than their Florida sisters. Child. They done talked about everybody. Now you getting ready to get on the Florida people. Child. Yeah. Ooh. You Europeans are an MFer. Think of y'all. All of that with y'all dusty, stealing asses.
Well, so Andrew Jackson took out the Seminoles because the Seminoles was in there too in Florida, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. But I'm just tripping that he was a cracker. That is tripping me all the way out.
A squatter?
Yeah, a squatter. That shit, I'm like, wow. That's, woo. All right.
3 terms of presidency?
Yeah.
You know what was running this?
But because he represented the squatters and the crackers. Yeah, the partisan group. So he was there for their come up. Because remember, all the presidents, they were still for they boys in them. So they really wasn't feeling the squatters and the crackers like that. Some of them tried to, but they wanted to mold the squatters and the crackers the way they wanted them to be. Where Jackson coming from that lot was like, oh no, I got that. We gonna get these engines, get these niggers out the way, so y'all can start taking their motherfucking place. Very, very interesting. Yeah. All right, so Hoosier gals were no more refined than their Florida sisters. Yeah, this motherfucking fighting words, I'm gonna tell you. This shit is fighting words. All right, so a Hoosier gal's courtship ritual, it was said, involved a lot of kicking and pulling hair. Sexual behavior was another crucial maker of class status. In a well-known poem of the era, The Hoosier's Nest, 1833, the author hearkened back to the vocabulary of the Scottish naturalist Wilson. Here again, the cabins were wild nests, a half-human, half-animal retreat, perfect for indiscriminate breeding. Using a racially charged slur, the poet identified the children as Hoosieroons, a class variation of the mixed race quadroons. Damn. Can somebody look up quadroons as I'm reading? Because I want to know.
Oh God, what they call them? Louisiana's names. They used to call it the quadroons, a mixture of a melanated and a white person.
Oh, what? I didn't know that, sis.
Dog. Hey, Rick.
You know what? Every time, this the second time. That's the second time we talk about mixed. Your dog taking offense to that. Like, I know that B ain't talking about me. Roof, roof, roof. I heard her say mixed. I heard her say mutt. Roof, roof, roof. That dog snapped last week on that. Yeah. That dog listening like, I heard what the hell she said. Roof, roof.
Oh, Louisiana. Let's see here. They used to call them women that were part black and part white.
Damn. So sis Cheryl just dropped in here. Indiana flat boatmen taking corn or maize to New Orleans came to be known as the Hoosa men. Hell now, or Hoosers. Interesting. It all ties together. Hoosers from an Indian word, corn, Hoosa. Interesting. And used to mean a countrified person. Okay, I can see that. And then Sis Hope goes, you silly Sis Hope. Sarah Palin is a squatter in Alaska. Yeah, her funk ass is. Shit. Then pissed me off.
Longfellow's poetical work is a slave, a quadroon, a slave in a dismal swamp. So they were slaves, and they were swampers. But they also have that in Louisiana, like she was saying, and Hoosiers and quadroons and stuff. I used to read that in Mandingo.
Interesting. Scotty Saturn dropped. An octoroon is a person who is 1/8 by black descent. Very interesting. So you know what? If the squatters were mixing with indigenous folk, then that would also make sense too. How a lot of the squatters, because I just be sitting back when I know that Caucasians / white people today be like, oh, you know, I have Indian in my family. My great, 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 this, that, and the third was Cherokee. And I'll be looking at them like, so in other words, they were black. So that's interesting. And probably how some of them got on them rolls too. Although we know most of them paid. Yeah, most of them paid to get on there. But damn, yeah.
There's a 1/4 black descent.
Okay.
Or they call it African here.
Yeah, we know that ain't no African. They can get the fuck on with that. So that's interesting. Yeah, so the rooms, a class variation of the mixed race quadroons. Under their leaky roofs were none of the hardy pioneers' stock. Instead, poor Indiana squatters produced a degenerate dozen of dirty yellow urchins. Damn, so you calling they mulatto children's urchins. Damn, they
mulatto, that's the word I was looking for.
Oh, mulatto.
And quadroons. And the mother was usually the one that they were descended from. And the guy was usually a white boy. European.
No, it's all good. And Scotty Saturn goes, and they would have those parties in Louisiana, to set up the quadroons and the octoroons, women with white men to lighten the bloodline and marry into the land. You're absolutely right. You are absolutely right. Absolutely correct. All right. So, filthy cabins, a lack of manner, and rampant breeding combined to make crackers and squatters a distant class, as verified by their patterns of speech. Backwood patriots constituted a rural American version of the lower class English Cockney. In 1830, there was even a cracker dictionary preserving their vintage slang. One was jimber-jawed, whose mouth was constantly moving. What you say, sis?
Cockney was Irish tongue Cockney?
Yeah, I've heard that before, too. No, they said English, though. They said English Cockney.
Well, they got it from the Scots or the Irish, I think, because, England and Scotland are right next door to each other. Let's see. Cockney.
That's interesting. So the protruding lower jaw carried over into style of talking. A ring-tailed roarer was a violent type. The descriptive chewed up, literally referring to having one's ear, nose, or lip bitten off. Well, damn. But one polysyllable word may have best captured their identity. The verb obsquative was a cracker conjugate word of squat, conveying the ideal of moseying along. For a people who wouldn't settle in one place, obsquantulate gave an activity of sorts to the American heirs of English vagrants. They might flee to an absconding servant or amble at a slow pace without a destination in mind. But in either case, it was their dirty feet and slip-slop ways that defined them. Okay, so in other words, they didn't set up too much roots, which would make sense if they were squatters, because they kept getting chased off the land. So Scotty goes that y'all dropping a lot of good stuff in the YouTube chat room. So Sis Hope goes, is that where they got the Creole people? And Scotty Saturn goes, yep. So in that area, it would have been those French men mixing with the indigenous to create the Creole. That is absolutely right. Cockney is the East London accent, basically the ghetto English. Okay, thank you. Yep. Okay, so Cockney is basically the Ebonics of the ghetto in England. Okay, the movie My Fair Lady, where they turned the ghetto white Cockney woman into a posh lady. Wow, thank you, Scotty Saturn. Absolutely. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. All right. Jackson was not the only Tennessean to become a national celebrity. Though by the 1830s, he would come to be known as a bear hunter and lion of the West. David Crockett was a militia scout and lieutenant, justice of the peace, town commissioner, state representative, and finally a U.S. congressman. He was first elected to the House of Representatives in 1827. What makes the historic David Crockett interesting is that he was self-taught, lived off the land, and most notably for us became an ardent defender of squatters' rights, for he had been a squatter himself. Yep. As a politician, he took up the cause of the landless poor. Absolutely, because it is said that Davy Crockett was actually he came over to serve a prison sentence.
Well,
a labor contract.
He ended up in Texas, didn't he? At the Alamo?
Yeah.
I guess he wanted to squat there.
Yeah, but he did the come up because he came over, like I'm telling most Caucasian people over in the Americans that's calling themselves European, your folks more than likely came over as indentured servants under a labor contract, or they came over under a prison sentence. And Davy Crockett came over under a prison sentence. So if he became a squatter, that meant he broke away from that labor contract and went to the swamps to live. I'm sorry, go ahead, sis.
Well, you know, when he came over to Texas, to the Alamo, they decided they're going to change the boundaries. And they said that 2 or 3 of them was killed on U.S. soil, and that's what caused that war between the Americans and the Indians, because they changed the boundaries and everybody started hollering, "Remember the Alamo," and that was the war cry. But it was because the squatters, and you talk about they weren't honest people, and they changed the boundaries and went over into Indian territory trying to take it.
Interesting.
So that
interesting
stuff got him in trouble. I think that was his last squat.
That's very interesting. They use those squatters too to their advantage to fight their wars with the promise of land.
Exactly. So they tried to take the Indian land, and they really
had
a problem.
Right. Sis Cheryl says free women of color in Louisiana were a very powerful group in their own right. They owned land, slaves, property, and businesses. They were called placid relationships. Makes sense. Because, marriage was a business. I'm sorry, go ahead, sis, what you say.
Some of those guys were married, and the girls was trying to get placed in society by marrying them themselves.
Right. Okay, so Crockett was born in the state of Franklin, a state that was not legally a state. It had declared its independence from North Carolina in 1784 and remained unrecognized. Franklin was later incorporated into Tennessee and became a battleground as speculators and squatters scrambled to control the most arable tracts. Their activities triggered an endless series of skirmishes with the Cherokee, exuberated by blatant treaty violations. Yep. Every agreement these motherfuckers struck, they never honored it. Right. So the first, So the first governor of Tennessee Territory, the progenious land speculator William Blount, was given the Cherokees' nickname Dirt Captain. From 1797 to 1811, the federal government periodically sent troops into Tennessee to remove squatters, which only increased their honorary man's natural hostility towards Washington. To Crockett, a man humble roots, willing to stand his ground, was attributed a simple philosophy. It's grit of the fellow that makes a man. But it wasn't grit alone that counted, and untamed physicality and fudunxity was thought to be the most American attributes. In 1830, in an unprecedented move, Crockett petitioned Congress to grant a resident of his state a tract of public land, not because of handwork, but because his wife had given birth to triplets. So ain't that a bitch? So using having babies as a crutch to get land and quote citizenship. Very interesting. So all right, we had about 9 more minutes left. So, brother Sean, you have any last words for the family? All right, brother Sean. All right, I'm gonna go to sis. You have any last words for the family?
Well, I enjoyed this day. It was very informative. It kind of like puts together the idea how this country together, and how they start expanding their little reach of squatting all over the country, and it was really informative. And it kind of like, I appreciate Scotty Savin and the rest of them for giving their input in it, because it what we don't know, they added.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And yeah, shout out to, I'm sorry, go ahead, brother Sean. Yeah, put something on your last words.
If you think about it, though, there's something like a disease.
Yeah, it is. Like
they turn into parasites, and they sit there and they fester.
Keep spreading.
True.
Leeches, whatever. They're vampires.
Agreed.
By very definition. I mean, as far as for the excessive defining of them, all the name calling, this, that, or the other, to sit up and narrate and give you your opinion of them.
Right.
But that's what they actually are, though. They've been accurate in that, whether or not they became that because they were defined by someone else. But for our people, just look at the way that they don't care. If you're not of the bloodline, your complexion has nothing to do with it.
They don't give a damn. That's right.
Black is black or the white is white.
Yep.
So overall, in this game, your complexion don't matter. You got to get your soul right.
That's right.
You got to work on you.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's good to know all this stuff, to know who did what, this, that, or the other. But more importantly than knowing any of this, you have to know who you are.
That's right. And that's the main reason we went into the Black Nobility series. And we're doing this series about the Real Pilgrims, because I wanted to bring the receipts on how color is a construct. And it's deeper than what you think it is, because we're basing stuff off of the last 400 years, and this shit goes deep. It goes many lifetimes deep. So now you're in the age of cleaning up your bloodline, reversing the curses, knowing thyself, so you may move forward and ascend to the higher realms and leave this lower vibration fuck shit where it needs to be, because we're done with it. So I do want to send a shout out to Purple Pill, all of everyone that was in Blog Talk chat room, all of the YouTube family. Shout out to Sis Cheryl, Scotty Saturn. Thank you for rocking with us. Mr. Tyrese, Sis Hope, and all the others that was in the chat room, the YouTube chat room tonight, throwing a lot of knowledge down, as well as the Blog Talk chat room, brother 832, our first time caller 713. Thank you all so much. We get so much from you all. That's why, you all give me the energy to keep coming here doing what we are doing every week, because as we're giving out information, you're giving us information too, and we're learning from you. And I'm gonna tell y'all, I do a lot of research, I listen to a lot of shows. You all are very smart. You some smart motherfuckers. You throw a lot of gems up in the chat room, and I just want to let you know that you are much, much appreciated. So I'm sorry, sis, go ahead.
No, I said, yeah, I'm just agreeing. Yep.
Absolutely.
I'm here with you.
Okay, so we're gonna rock out with some music. YouTube, I gotta cut you all off, family, because I don't want them striking down the motherfucking video and all of that jazz. But love you very much. So glad it finally worked. We will be back next week, YouTube family. Love you much. Peace and love.